Welcome back into the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman here with you guys to preview week 4 in the NFL. We got 3 weeks down. Dalton, I think that, we had 2 weeks in the NFL. We go, we know what these teams are going to be. We've seen the first 2 weeks. I understand. And then it's just week 3 is always the biggest wrench that gets thrown into everything. And now for week 4, now you and I have to parse out, okay, well, hold on. Wait, which week was real? Was week 1 the real identity? Was week 3? Was week 2? For some teams, it's going to be a little bit easier than others, but I'm excited to go through every single game of the schedule, which once again includes an international game here this week. So how you doing, my friend?
We are good. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of things changing, and there's even some teams changing their identity on the fly, but it's going to be a lot of fun to analyze, and you start to get into that bit, you have enough data where you can find out, okay, which underlying metrics are giving you the true outcomes here, which teams are kind of outperforming what they should be, and obviously it's still early, and there's a lot of teams. It's really not till week 7 or 8, Trevor, that you'll really figure out fully what teams are and how they want to operate. So still a lot of fun to see these early season adjustments.
It is indeed. If you guys want to see all the numbers that we're going to talk about here on the show, we're going to give you really these main matchups, not just player matchups, but also individual data point matchups. It's like, okay, well, how is this team when they're attacking over the middle of the field? What's this team like when they're going up against a team that likes to run power a lot? What does this team do when the defenses that they're facing blitzes? We're going to go through a lot of that here on that show. You can see these numbers for yourself and so much more if you have a PFF Plus subscription. Best way to do that is subscribe.pff.com. And if you use the promo code PFF NFL Show 25, it's all one word, PFF NFL Show 25, you'll get 25% off a PFF subscription, which of course is year long. It's not just in the season. You get into draft season, free agency season, all that good stuff as well. You can see all that data for yourself. So go check it out if you don't have a subscription yet. Now is a fantastic time to get one. Dalton, I got one game on you last week because we do these game predictions as well. We'll tell you who we think is going to win and by how much. I was 11-5. Now we're only picking winners in this one. We're not picking against the spread, but I was 11-5 last week. You were 10-6 last week, but you still have one game on me for the season. You're 35-13. I'm 34-14, and we do have a handful of games that we disagree with a little bit here. I feel like I'm going more underdog heavy than you are this week. So I don't know. I don't know if you don't want to believe in the underdog. If you're just going to be a hater about it, no, Cinderella stories don't exist. Bad teams are always going to stay bad. I'm being a little bit more hopeful with some of these teams that maybe didn't get off to the hottest start this season.
Yeah, I did find myself picking a good number of favorites, but there's a lot of 50-50 games here. I could see the road for a lot of these. There's some weird games this week with some teams who have gotten off to hot starts and some others who were kind of checking and measuring, going, you know what, are you actually this good? And they're going to, maybe there's some reality check coming for some of these teams, but it's going to be an awesome week. I think there's a lot of even games.
So let's start with Thursday Night Football. The Seattle Seahawks are taking on the Arizona Cardinals. This one is in Arizona. This game started off with the Seahawks getting 1.5 points. And as the week has gone on here, now obviously we are recording this on Wednesday, so things can change in either direction. But now the Seahawks are the ones who are favored by 1.5 points. So it was the Cardinals. Now it is the Seahawks. How do you feel about that one? What do you want to talk about here with this game?
I just look at, watching the first 3 games for Seattle, and they're obviously working through the offensive line, and they've been playing at an average level. They're 16th in PFF grade. It's kind of that creep back towards average thing. So the offensive lines looked okay. The defense, I think, has looked really good. But the best part of this team right now, and honestly exceeding my expectations, even with reuniting with Clint Kubiak, is Sam Darnold. He's the highest graded quarterback in football through 3 weeks. Now, he's made fewer pass attempts than any quarterback who's played in all 3 games this season, but that's in part because in week 1, they didn't have the football at all. Week 2, he was pretty efficient. And last week, the game against the Saints was pretty much over before it started. But to be the highest graded quarterback in football is an accomplishment. I see him being more decisive. He is the second lowest average time to throw at 2.55 seconds, only behind Matthew Stafford. That number was closer to 3.1 seconds for him last year. So he's getting rid of the football quickly. He's decisive. And I think the biggest part of his game that's impressing me right now is he's dominating over the middle of the field between the numbers, he is the highest graded passer in football. He's completing 88% of his passes, leads the NFL, and 11.1 yards per attempt. Sam Darnold's been attacking the middle of the field with such precision that it's giving all of their opposing defenses big problems. And when you look at the Cardinals and the way they play their zone defenses, they sit back, they try to prevent explosives down the field, they run a lot of quarters. That's the moment where I go, okay, Sam Darnold's got a pretty good matchup against this secondary it's banged up on the outside, but I still expect him to attack the middle. The Arizona Cardinals through 3 games have allowed the most receptions and yards between the numbers in the passing game in the NFL. I expect Darnold to continue to attack that area of the field.
I don't know. That's my boy DTD's territory right there. Adrian Taylor Demerson, the safety from Arizona. He's got himself an interception already this season. I don't know, man. I feel like he's an over the middle of the field ball hawk, so maybe he might get one on Sam Darnold this week. But I do think that's a good thing to point out that, people looked at Sam Darnold last year, and I think they looked at the last game of the regular season and the first game in the playoffs, and they just said, Sam Darnold, he is who he is. First 16 games were totally fool's gold. Well, that wasn't going to be the case either. And so it's great to see him playing well in Clint Kubiak's system. We talked about that being a really good fit when they went out and they signed him this offseason after, moving on from Geno Smith and everything. It was going to be a lot of change, but I thought the change could have been good, and I know that you agreed with that as well. So I've been a big Seahawks believer. I had them win in this division before the season. Now, I had them win the division because I kind of wasn't sure what to make of Matthew Stafford's back injury. I felt like he was not going to play this season. So if I could kind of go back, probably go with the Rams. But I do think that the Seahawks are going to be right there. I think it's going to be close down to the very end. This is a really good football team, and I think we'll see a really good showing from them on Thursday. The Cardinals were sort of people's surprise team to maybe win this division. Maybe I shouldn't say surprise because they were leading the division 8 weeks through the season last year and did not have a good second half of the season. Not only did they not win the division, they did not make the playoffs. This year, I think that they have a ton of defensive potential. I like what the Cardinals are on the defensive side of the ball, which you would probably expect that to be the case given the fact that they have a defensive head coach and that they've spent the most money on that side of the ball. But when it comes to their passing attack, that, like we talked about in the review show on Monday, leaves a lot to be desired. Now, they're decently efficient. When Kyler Murray does in fact throw the football, he's pretty efficient with it. 78.9 team passing grade, which is 7th in the NFL. So it's a top 10, top 8 mark. But you look at yards per attempt, 6.6. That's 24th in the NFL. And then average depth of target, specifically 6.5. That's 31st in the NFL. And so when Kyler's letting the ball go, it's normally a good decision and it's normally good for the team. But it just feels like he's not doing that at an explosive enough level. He's not afraid to hit the easy passes, 10 yards or less, but he's just not pushing the ball deep down the field. And you've had a couple of opportunities, like the Marvin Harrison Jr. dropped catch, like that changes some of the numbers a little bit. But this team is also a 57.1 receiving grade as a team with just its wide receivers. Their wide receivers are not winning right now. They're not winning down the field, and I think that's really capping what this team is. Of course, you can talk about the running back side of it as well. Knows James Conner anymore for the rest of the season. I think Trey Benson is a high potential running back to get you those explosive runs, but I've also talked about over the last couple of weeks, Arizona, their run game is okay when it comes to their offensive linemen, but they don't have those high impact run blocking plays they still need to have to get Trey Benson to be able to showcase his athleticism that way. So ultimately, Dalton, I am going with the Seahawks in this one. I'm going a little bit more high scoring than you, though. I think we're in for a little bit of a fireworks show here. I'm going 31-27. We're going to have fun here on Thursday night. And if it's that score, it's going to be a very entertaining game to watch. But I think the Cardinals will get right when it comes to passing the ball deeper down the field. They'll have a couple more of those plays. That'll keep them in it till the very end. But I do wonder if they have the consistency in the run game to be able to match. And that's sort of the story with the Cardinals the whole season for me is I don't know how much I can trust this team, and so I'm not going to trust them here to get the win on Thursday night, even with them at home.
Yeah, I agree. I have Seattle. I have it 24-17. I think this game is dictated a little bit more by the two defenses, but I just don't like at all the way that the Cardinals are not really executing on offense right now. The James Conner loss is a huge loss. This is a really good Seahawk defense, especially up front. Again, those big defensive tackles, Leonard Williams and Byron Murphy, can really control the pace of the game, and I'm curious to see if Seattle can run the ball on Calais Campbell and Arizona's defense defensive line. I do think Sam Darnold and Jackson Smith-Njigba are the difference in this game, throwing over the middle of the field, throwing through that zone coverage. And Darnold, like I said, has been so decisive. He looks more decisive and confident than ever in Clint Kubiak's system. It may be a new system for the rest of the team, but it's not for Darnold. I like the Seahawks in this game by a touchdown, 24-17.
From Sam Darnold's current team to Sam Darnold's old team here, let's talk about the Minnesota Vikings as they are traveling to Dublin to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers there. And this is going to be a very interesting game because the Steelers are sitting here at 2-1, but a lot of their numbers would tell you that they're not having a ton of success on the offensive side of the ball this season. So what are we talking about here with the Steelers when it comes to this matchup versus the Vikings?
Yeah, I think as much as you can. I mean, there's not a lot working for the Steelers, but look, Aaron Rodgers, despite some of the surface level numbers, he's not throwing the ball downfield well. He's completed, I believe it's 56 passes this season, and 23 of them have been behind the line of scrimmage. It's inconsistent downfield. The offensive line's been inconsistent. And I think the X factor in this, look, they have to find a run game eventually. Mason McCormick is their only offensive line. He's the right guard. He's their only offensive lineman with a run blocking grade of at least 62. They're not run blocking well, especially at offensive tackle. They're not running the ball well. 29th in rushing grade, 31st in yards per carry, 30th in explosive run rate. They're really, other than when teams, give them free opportunities like the Patriots with all the turnovers or the Jets in week 1 with all their blown coverages, the Steelers are having a hard time manufacturing offense in the air or on the ground, right? So I think when you look at the X factor being the run game in this game, you look at Minnesota and their run defense, and they've had to adjust a little bit without Blake Cashman there at linebacker. But in their 2 wins, they have a 91.2 run defense grade. In their loss to Atlanta, they had a 40. So I think that's kind of the X factor. You have to beat this Vikings team physically up front. We got to see if the Steelers are up to the task. I think especially their 2 tackles, I know I've talked about it endlessly, but Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu against Andrew Van Ginkel and Jonathan Grenard, that's a really tough matchup. And if the Steelers are going to have any chance, especially to run between the tackles, they have really struggled to run between the tackles. They got to find a way to run the football, because if they're asking Rodgers, and it's just like, it's kind of similar to the vibe when the Jets went out to England to play the Vikings last year. They just asked Aaron Rodgers to do way too much against a very good and very complex defense. Pittsburgh has to find a way to run the ball to set up the rest of their offense.
It does feel like, and we kind of talked about this during the offseason, if Mike Tomlin's able to get an above 500 record with this current group of Pittsburgh Steelers players, especially on the offensive side of the ball, I mean, it's just there's dark magic at work here, like how this would happen, because you look at them, they are 2-1 on the season, but they are 2-1 because they are the team that often survives if you make mistakes, right? I mean, you look at the first 2 weeks of the season. They're able to beat the New York Jets. I wouldn't even say because they outplayed them. I don't really think that they outplayed them. But the fact of the matter is that the Jets had 2 massive blown coverages that ended up being touchdowns for this team. And that was all the difference in the world. They're able to win that game by 2 points. Last week, the New England Patriots had more yards, more offensive plays, and a larger time of possession. They controlled that entire football game. The difference? They fumbled the ball 4 times and lost it 4 times. That's it. And the Steelers win that game. So if the Vikings do not beat themselves, I think that they should be able to win this game pretty handily, especially for how the Vikings have been running the ball lately, especially last week. Jordan Mason, their running back now with Aaron Jones out, 76.1 rushing grade this season, 214 total rushing yards, 74.2 rush grade on inside and outside zones. So behind zone blocking schemes in week 3 with 98 yards. That is what they are leaning into. I love the fact that he has had so much success in those inside and outside zone plays, because that allows you to get away from the teeth of that interior defensive line in between the tackles where the Steelers are really stout. So it makes you run to the sidelines to sort of neutralizes some of those defensive linemen at times. And it's just what Kevin O'Connell and this Vikings team wants to do. So I think that's a big X factor there, but simply put, they just cannot turn the ball over. And I hope this isn't famous last words. I believe in Carson Wentz enough to not do that in this system. I really do. Like we have seen over the last couple of years, whether it was him with the Chiefs, and then I think it was with the Rams right before that, if I'm remembering this correctly, like Carson Wentz has had good games. Obviously, it didn't work out during his time as a franchise quarterback and a starter when he was in Philadelphia, but even the spot starting duties, like he has had games where he can play well. And They didn't really need him last week because Isaiah Rodgers went God mode and had the highest PFF single game PFF grade of all time at a 99.9 because he outscored the Bengals by himself. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's not going to happen this week, but I think that the Vikings can control this game enough to where they're going to be able to get the victory. I've got them winning 21-10. I think the Steelers' offense is pretty stagnant against this Brian Flores group, so I got them winning by double digits.
Yeah, I agree. I have it 21-13 Minnesota. I think Aaron Rodgers can, he can find a way if the Vikings give him opportunities to put points on the board, but I think the Steelers are going to have a hard time putting together long drives, 70, 80-yard drives against Minnesota. And you mentioned it. Kevin O'Connell is such a huge factor with Carson Wentz, just getting him to play reasonably well and to just run the system. And I think another big factor is the Vikings got Christian Darrisaw back at left tackle last week, and they're getting Jordan Addison back as at wide receiver this week. So you add him to Jefferson and Hawkinson, everything else they have there. You mentioned Jordan Mason as well. I just think Minnesota's better. I think Pittsburgh's offense, like you mentioned, is stagnant. I think they're going to have a hard time putting long drives together.
Walt in the chat's asking who will be drinking Guinness since it's a meal. If it's from Ireland, I will be. But if it's not from Ireland, then I won't be. It's different. I've said this on this show. I visited Ireland and Dublin this past summer. It's different. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if it's the water they use, whether it's just the home cooking, whatever it is. Guinness over there, phenomenal. Over here, not nearly as good. Before we get to the next game, Game Time. It's the best place to score tickets for NFL or college football games, whether it is international or here in the States. Game Time's hands down the easiest way that we have found to get sports tickets. We were talking about this on the Monday show. Think of all of the crazy special teams plays that happened last week. Imagine being at those games. If you were a fan of that team, getting to see that in person, the craziness, especially how some of them were game sealing, game deciding, it was incredible. That's the stuff that you live for. That's why you want to go to games. Getting into the games has never been easier thanks to Game Time. You know the total up front when you're looking at the ticket prices. No surprise fees at checkout, which is great. You can get new ticket deals before anyone else finds them by favoriting your teams in the app, and you can receive alerts for them. Lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Legit tickets delivered on time. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. Download the Game Time app, use the code PFF20, and you can get $20 off your first purchase. That's Game Time. Amazing deals, no hassles. Commanders at the Falcons. We're recording this on Wednesday, but the report that was Jaden Daniels is going to be a limited participant, or that he was a limited participant at practice with that knee injury this week. You want to talk about the Commander side of things? You want to talk about the Falcons, Dalton?
I'll take the Commanders' offensive side of things there. Jaden Daniels limited in practice. Terry McLaurin not practicing today, and his status is maybe even more in doubt than Daniels right now. But I think when you look at this Commanders' offense, whether it is Daniels or Marcus Mariota under center, and it's great for all this time that Jaden Daniels has been able to carry him. He's been their best player since the start of last year. But the X factor, I think, in this team, you mentioned this on Monday, in this team winning and losing, is their run game and having balance in their offense. If you go back to the start of last year, since Daniels' first start, and even three games in there where Mariota played heavily, 16 wins, Trevor, all right, for the Commanders, 91.4 rushing grade, and 176 rushing yards per game. In their 7 losses, it's only a 70 rushing grade, and they run for less than 4 yards a carry. When they can run the football and they're balanced and they don't just have to drop back and throw those quick passes that Daniels, yes, loves to throw, but then you're relying on him too much. When they have balance, they're extremely dangerous. You saw that last week, even with all the backs they have, Jeremy McNichols, Chris Rodriguez, Bill Krosky, Merritt, Daniels or Mariota themselves. Then you get Deebo Samuel involved. Then you get Jalen Lane involved. When this offense has balance, they're extremely dangerous. So I think regardless of which quarterback plays, Daniels or Mariota, they're going to want to run the football. They're going to want balance in this offense. Now, I think it will hurt them if Terry McLaurin is not going to be in, because he's that deep threat. He's the guy who can beat man-to-man coverage, even though the Falcons don't play a whole lot of that. But I do think for the Commanders, it's still essential that they come out and run the football regardless of which quarterback is in the game.
This team, like you mentioned, is so good when they run the football well. I mentioned it on Monday's show. They have now 2 of the top 5 single game rushing yard totals in this young NFL season. And that's what they want to do. I think everybody gets caught up in sort of what Jaden Daniels can do as a passer, but it is built through the run game. And so that is obviously important. That is very paramount for them. For the Falcons side of things, I'm sort of piggybacking off of a point that you had on the grade release show when we were taking a look at the Falcons and how they struggled against the Carolina Panthers. Specifically, you talked about how I loved how the way that you phrased this. They were tipping their pitches a little bit, right? When they're in the shotgun, they're passing the football. When they're under center, they're running the ball. Like there's just not a lot of deception. And that goes into play action because they have one of the most dynamic backfield weapons in the NFL with Bijan Robinson. Not only with handing the ball off to him as a rusher, but also what he can be as a receiver. You should be utilizing play action almost as much as anybody in the NFL. And yet, the Falcons through 3 weeks, they only have 19 dropbacks where they have used play action. That's 29th in the league. So they're almost dead last at it. This team should be top 5, let alone bottom 3, which is just crazy to me that they're in that spot because you have to be able to manipulate linebackers a lot better when you have Bijan Robinson. And specifically, I think that this could be an interesting matchup for them because the Commanders have done a decent job limiting receiving production for running backs out of the backfield so far through this season. But, it's an aging Bobby Wagner. It's a Frankie Louvu who's a little bit more of an attacker, more of that line of scrimmage type of linebacker. And then sometimes they'll throw Jeremy Reeves, their strong safety, in there to cover those running backs out of the backfield as well. But I think they have to utilize play action so much more in this game and in this season in general, because if not, you are leaving meat on the bone when it comes to putting a defense on its heels. Getting them to second guess for just a half second even is sometimes all you need. And that's what play action can do for you. So some teams, I understand, like if they're at the bottom half of the NFL, bottom 5, whatever it is, you go, the rushing attack's not really a threat. So I can understand where they come to that conclusion, even though we've talked about here on the show for many years, that you don't necessarily have to have a great rushing attack for play action to still be useful. When you have Bijan Robinson, it's going to be incredibly useful because, you have to be a step in front of him, not just even with him and recognizing it. You've got to be a step ahead to try to stop this guy out of the backfield. So that's what I really want to see from the Falcons offense. Let's get some more play action in there this week, and I think Bijan can once again be a focal point of what your passing attack is going to be. I will say, though, as we come to my prediction here, I kind of wanted to go with the Falcons because they're pretty potent with their passing attack, and if they fix some of the things that we talked about on the Monday show, I do think that this team could get a win, especially with them hosting it. But they are tied for the lowest field goal grade in the NFL with all of the blunders that they have had kicking this season. It's hard for me to bet on a team that I can't trust to get 3 points, even if you are well within field goal range. If you are kicking anything beyond if you are kicking anything like 40 to 50 yards, that should be, in today's NFL, pretty automatic. And I just don't even know if the Falcons are able to convert those opportunities. So I'm going with the Commanders by 3, by a field goal. I'm going to go Commanders 24, Falcons 21.
I've got Commanders 27-20. I still, even if it's Mariota instead of Daniels playing this game, I still feel good about where the Commanders' offense is at and what they showed us last week. And despite the Commanders being dead last in coverage grades so far this year, if your passing game, if you're the Falcons, is predictable, then it doesn't matter. The Commanders are going to be the ones that win that battle more often than not, as long as they're not getting beat with deep shots. And you mentioned it, they need to run more play action. And the field goal part, I think, is interesting because it speaks to a broader theme of them not finishing drives. We saw in the Minnesota game, despite them winning, was it 1 for 5, I believe they were, in the red zone. Red zone's been a problem. Even last week against Carolina, there was several times when they were knocking on the door, but they just couldn't get inside the 30 and finish drives. So I think it's a real problem. This Falcons offense is, I don't want to say it's in disarray because it is one bad performance, but you're not seeing as clear an identity through 3 weeks as you want to. I like the Commanders in this game. I think they know who they are, and I think regardless of whether it's Daniels or Mariota in there, this offense can run pretty smooth.
The Falcons, 30th in the NFL so far through 3 weeks, 28.57% converting red zone opportunities into touchdowns. You know what also sticks out here? Houston's at 0%.
That's a problem.
They have yet to score a touchdown when they get to the end, the red zone. That's not great. But we'll obviously talk about the Houston Texans a little bit later in the show. The Saints are traveling to the Buffalo Bills. Maybe the hottest team in the NFL, maybe the most feared team in the NFL. One that I think some people would have said the Packers before last week, but now that they lost to the Browns, I think the Bills probably take that crown here. What do you want to talk about here? You want to talk about the Bills side of things or the Saints side of things?
I think the Bills offensively, obviously what makes them one of the most feared teams in the NFL is just Josh Allen's existence, right? When you have number 17, you have a chance to win any game. But I think the other thing is really it's Joe Brady and the number of different personnel groupings he can get in. And one thing I want to just focus on, put the spotlight on for the Bills is this group of tight ends is just ridiculously good. And the number of ways that Joe Brady uses them, just fantastic stuff, because there are three different guys with three different skill sets, right? You're talking about Dawson Knox as the big veteran blocker who can occasionally give you something in the passing game. Dalton Kincaid, who's more of a flexible receiver who you can move around the formation. And then Jackson Hawes, I mean, honestly, he's almost like Dawson Knox Jr., if I'm being honest. He's kind of the same style of player, but when you have both those guys on the field, it's like having extra offensive linemen. Bills tight ends right now as a group are second in the NFL in PFF grade. They're 10th in receiving grade, and they're second in run blocking grade. It's a big part of the reason the Bills as a team lead the NFL in run blocking grade. These tight ends, along with their offensive line, they are the highest graded team on offense in the league when multiple tight ends are on the field. And you just look at all the different packages that Joe Brady can go with. He can put Dalton Kincaid out in the slot and then either Hawes or Knox in line, and you can still have that run pass kind of balance despite having two tight ends on the field. He can have Knox and Hawes out there both in big run formations in true 12 personnel, and you've got like 7 offensive linemen. There was sets last week where they were putting Hawes and Knox out there with an extra offensive lineman, Alec Anderson out there, and you've basically got 8 guys who could just maul people up front. The Bills' offensive line is really good, but what these tight ends are adding to both the run game and the pass game just makes them so dynamic no matter what personnel grouping they're in. So I think week in and week out, I think we need to start watching their usage and just the different ways that they use all 3 of these tight ends, because Joe Brady's doing a hell of a job with it.
Yeah, I mean, they're staying very traditional in sort of what their approach is, right? I mean, like, if you can't stop the run, if you can't stop us in our jumbo packages, like whatever you want to call these bigger packages where you've got the extra offensive linemen or you're playing like 13 personnel or something like that, if you can't stop our power run game, we're going to keep doing it. It's just as simple as that. Like, and then obviously when they spread it out, they've got an alien at quarterback that they feel good about. But if you can't stop the run with this team, they're just going to continue to go after you. The only chance that the Saints have in this game is if they keep the Bills' offense on the sideline, right? And the only way that they're able to do that is if they continue to lean in on the run game. Now, this might be a surprise to some people out there, but the Saints actually aren't too bad at rushing the football this season. 73.0 team rush grade, which is 13th in the NFL. They have 18 missed tackles forced, which is 8th, top 10 mark. 3.9 yards per carry average, okay, that's 20th, and then 21st in EPA per rush, and that's 21st. So it's not it's not the best rushing attack in the league, but they're capable of having good days. And if they're able to control the clock more than people expect, well, that's really the only chance that they have in this, because let's face it, this is the biggest game spread of the season so far. The Bills are a 15.5-point favorite in this game. And at one point I saw that it was 16 as well, which is just an insane amount of points to be giving another team. I understand that it's in Buffalo, but that 15.5 number is more insulting than how I think the Saints have been playing this season. Another problem for them, though, is the O-line and the inconsistencies there. No offensive lineman has a season-long overall blocking grade above 70. Eric McCoy is the closest one with a 69.3, but nobody else is really close to that mark outside of him. And so the Saints' offensive line just has to play better. They haven't played super well early on this season through 3 games, but I don't think that they have a chance. Really, the Saints are just trying to cover this game, right? And I think the only chance that they cover it is if they can control the football. And obviously, if you get a couple of turnovers, you never know what happens. But there's a reason why they are more than 2 touchdown favorites. And for as much as I think it's disrespectful to how well the Saints have played at times through 3 weeks, I do get it. I got Bills 31. I got Saints 14. So I have the Bills even covering that number.
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 games a year where Buffalo, especially at home, they just take care of business. I mean, they really have no business keeping the Saints in this game. I've got the Bills 35-13. I just think offensively, too many answers to too many problems. The Saints defense has not played horribly, at least in their first 2 games. They didn't play horribly. Brandon Staley has got them keeping things in front of them with more zone coverage. Demario Davis has been fantastic at linebacker. He'll be a big factor against this run game, but I just don't think the Saints really have enough. When you look at what they have on offense, quarterback, offensive line, and then their defense, it just kind of fell apart last week. I like the Bills a lot in this game.
The Browns coming off of a thrilling victory against some people's number 1 team in the NFL in the Green Bay Packers last week. And I'll talk about the Browns a little bit more and how impressed I am with them on the defensive side of the ball. Now they're traveling to Detroit to take on a Lions team that, okay, they stumbled against the Packers to start the season, but since then it's been business as usual, all of their games there. So where do you want to start here? You want to talk about the Lions or the Browns?
I mean, I'll go with the Lions offense against the Browns defense because I know that's kind of the matchup to highlight here. And you look at the contrast between what the Lions are earning between the tackles in the run game right now. Last week against the Ravens, I should say a couple of days ago against the Ravens, 187 rushing yards between the tackles. They were getting right downhill with those big duo schemes that they're running. Penei Sewell had the best run blocking grade of any offensive lineman in a game we've ever tracked. Tate Ratledge had a 90 run blocking grade. Taylor Decker had an 84. I mean, it was just an absolute mauling that they gave the Ravens front seven. The Lions this year between the tackles are 5th in rushing grade, 1st in run blocking grade, and 3rd in yards per carry. But the Browns front seven may be the one team that can kind of keep up with them, right? You talk about Myles Garrett, Malik Collins, Mason Graham, Isaiah McGuire, Carson Schlesinger, Devin Bush, all those guys playing great in run defense. When you run between the tackles on the Browns, they have the 3rd best run defense grade right now, and they have the fewest yards per carry allowed. So I think that's a battle on the inside. Do the Lions just kind of beat their head against the wall and go, no, we're better, we're more physical with our offensive line? Or do they try to get to the edges, or do they try to throw it and let Jared Goff control the game? Obviously, we saw the Packers struggle. We even saw the Baltimore Ravens struggle with Derrick Henry to run the ball on Cleveland. This Cleveland front seven is a real problem, and I just wonder if the Lions are going to try to challenge it? Are we going to get a real war in the trenches in the run game? Are they going to try to dominate them like they did to Baltimore? But this Cleveland front seven is nothing to be messed with, man. They can keep them in any game.
Yeah, I know we like to talk about both sides of the ball here, but to be honest, like that's kind of really the only side of the ball that matters is how the Browns defend the Detroit Lions, because the Browns just don't really have anything on offense. I mean, Tillman has been disappointing. Jerry Jeudy has certainly been disappointing for this team. I mean, he has so many targets and so few catches. He has 0 contested catches. He has 5 contested targets to him. It's just, he has been really disappointing. Harold Fannon's been nice, but I mean, he's sort of just been nice, sort of a change of pace option for them. Obviously, Joe Flacco is at quarterback. He's going to be a fine veteran for them with a decent floor, but the ceiling is so limited. And so ultimately, and unfortunately, it just comes down to how dominant the Browns defense is. And they have been truly dominant through the first couple of games of the season. In fact, they're number 1 in a lot of categories. They're number 1 in team rushing grade. They're number 3 in EPA per rush allowed. They have an 85.9 team run defense grade. Both of the wins that the Lions have came with positive EPA per rushes and a team rushing grade above 70. Against the Packers, they were not able to run the football well. And I think if you just put the ball in Jared Goff's hands, who Jared Goff is playing really good football. I want to be clear. Like, that's not an intention for me to take a shot at Jared Goff. He has also been playing very, very well in this game. But that's basically the script that you have to follow. You have to make Jared Goff beat you at this point, because you can't just let the Lions lean on the run game. We've seen what that has done to some good football teams over the last couple of weeks. So it's just it just comes down to how well the Browns are going to play defense. Is the number 1 defense in the NFL, is that enough? Is that truly enough? Because I just have not seen the consistency, the ceiling, really anything from the Browns offense. They have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL right now. Like, I think they're giving up maybe the highest rate of pressure. I think they maybe have given up the most total pressures. They're one of the worst pass blocking offensive lines in the NFL. So that used to be a unit of strength for them. Now, for the Browns, I'm basically just praying that the rookies take over. I'm praying that Harold Fannin Jr. or Quinshon Judkins or Dylan Sampson, like I'm praying that one of those guys is able to give you an X factor type of game on offense, because outside of that, for as much as the Browns have been exciting over the first couple of weeks, and I would agree, I think that they should be 2-1 here. How do you keep up with an offense like the one that we have seen Detroit have, especially over the last couple of weeks, and then tying that into what they have been over the last couple of years? I don't think it's enough for Cleveland to get it done here, especially with this game being in Detroit. I'll go Lions 21, Browns 13.
I'll take the low scoring outcome still, because I think this Browns defense is real. They have the highest graded defense in the NFL and the lowest graded offense in the NFL. It's just quite a contrast between the two sides of the ball. But I'll take the Lions 17-10. I do think Cleveland's defense can give the Lions some issues. Obviously, we've seen Jared Goff under pressure is not very good. It's been like that his whole career. But the Lions are going to find enough here, and I'm with you. The Browns, just not enough answers on offense. And I think their offensive tackle position, especially DeJuan Jones now has an injury. He's going on IR. So you're talking about possibly two backup tackles playing against Aiden Hutchinson, and Al-Qadim Muhammad's been a revelation on the other side for the Lions so far. Hutchinson is 14th in the league in pass rush grade right now. Muhammad is 15th. So you've got a good pair of edge rushers that are really getting the job done. They were both fantastic against Baltimore. I think that's the difference, is just once again the Browns can't score enough. The defense, I think, will keep them in this game. I think they're fantastic, but I just think eventually the Lions find enough to get it done. 17-10.
Yeah, and DeJuan Jones now out for the season, which is a tough blow for them, but he did not have a great start to the season either. 43.9 pass blocking grade. Cornelius Lucas, who's taken over for him, he has a 45.2 pass blocking grade. It's just not the Browns' offensive line that it used to be, even with some of the names that are familiar there. And so it's been a big issue for this team. Aiden Hutchinson is really starting to warm up. You mentioned Muhammad, which I'm glad that you did, because that's, I think, an underrated edge rusher duo 3 weeks into the season. I think it's going to be low scoring like you do. I just don't think that the Bears have it, or that the Browns have enough. I don't. Dalton, this time of year, it's fantastic to be standing by the grill. It really is. Like, it just, the weather is starting to turn. It's so nice. I always try to have at least one night a week where we're grilling something fantastic, whether it's a steak, a pork chop, chicken, whatever. I threw a bunch on the grill last night for meal prep. But I also try to save at least one meal that we're really like making a really great cut of meat. And doing that, we got to go with Omaha steaks, right? Handcrafted steaks, delicious for fall favorites. Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. You can enjoy USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy and convenient comfort meals, all the tailgating favorites, chicken wings, smash burgers, deli style franks. See, this is the problem. Now I'm getting too hungry, and we're not even halfway through the show yet. During their red hot sales event, you can get 50% off site wide over at Omaha Steaks. Plus, our listeners get an extra $35 off with the promo code PFF at checkout. It is so convenient to have high quality steaks on hand. Like I said, maybe you didn't even check the weather. Maybe you're just waking up and go, my gosh, it's such a beautiful day, a beautiful night outside. Why don't we fire up the grill? It's great just having the convenience of those high quality Omaha steaks right there. They got a ton of different options. We talked about this on Monday. I didn't know that you were going to be more of a filet guy than a ribeye guy. I think I'm more of a ribeye guy, but I like being able to choose. They've got different packages that you guys can see. It's high quality food. It's delivered right to your door. Unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite's backed by their 100% guarantee. Right now, it's the perfect time to stock up with the exceptional handcrafted flavor and convenience of Omaha Steaks. Every steak is perfectly aged to maximize all the tenderness. Hand cut by the master butchers here in America's heartland. Grass-fed, grass-finished. Beef has more marbling and exceptional flavor. That's the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. Get fired up for all of your fall grilling with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Red Hot Sales event. For an extra $35 off, you can also use the promo code PFF at checkout. That's 50% off omahasteaks.com. And use that extra and get that extra $35 off using the promo code PFF at checkout. See the site for more details there. I know that I was speaking Walt's language. Walt talks about firing up the grill basically every single time we have one of these shows.
Is he having lunch right now? Did he announce his lunch today?
Yeah. I don't know. Hold on. What's he?
I know that sometimes
blackened chicken thighs on the grill, he says.
Oh wow, there you go. Yeah, I know. Usually we hear about what he's having for lunch. I know we've heard about that on the college show too. Absolutely.
Walt, we're coming over. Just letting you know.
We'll
set a couple extra plates out. Panthers at the Patriots here is the next game that we are previewing. Two teams that are very tough to decipher, right? You've got some undisciplined mistakes, some mental mistakes, some turnovers, also some wins. It's just I don't really know what to make of these teams that I didn't have the highest of hopes for going into the season, but I thought that both of these teams were going to be taking steps forward in their own ways. They have at times, but I feel like it's been more negative than it has been positive for both of these teams. And so it's sort of hard to parse my expectations of them getting better versus maybe what has been on the field through the first 3 weeks. What do you think? Which team do you want to start talking about first here in this matchup?
I think in general, what you're talking about with these two, Trevor, is two young teams that are just trying to make progress, right? We don't know if they're really postseason contenders yet, but there's going to be bumps in the road when you have teams as young as these two, especially offensively. You've got young quarterbacks. You've got, especially for New England, young pieces on the offensive line, both teams trying to figure out their receiving core. So I think, that kind of uneven level of progress, you're going to get that from these two. And the Panthers obviously coming off a big win. New England coming off a game against Pittsburgh where really they beat themselves more than the Steelers beat them. And those are things that you go through with such a young football team, right? You try to teach them along the way. So I think this is a big game for both of them. The winner going to be at 2-2 and feeling really good about themselves. I'm going to start on Carolina's offensive side. And I think a big key when you're playing the Patriots, look, we could see coming into the season with them signing Milton Williams, with Christian Barmore being 100% healthy, that got guys like Kyrus Tonga playing well, that this New England defensive tackle group is a real problem to block. And I think interior pass protection for a guy like Bryce Young with the lack of size and everything is so key to his success. You look at these Patriots defensive tackles right now, they're second in the league in pass rush grade. They're first in pass rush win rate. The interior pressure is really where New England is winning the battle right now. You look at the Panthers and their beat up offensive line. Damian Lewis, obviously a solid pass blocker, 81 pass blocking grade. Cade Mays, who this year came in as their backup center, but he played a lot last year and played pretty good football. So I got some faith in him at center in place of Austin Corbett. But Chandler Zavala is the real problem right there at right guard. 27 pass blocking grade. He struggled in pass protection in the past. I think a big key for Carolina, obviously, they've got to get the ball, their weapons. If Christian Gonzalez is out again, I think you could see another big day for Tetairoa McMillan. But interior pass protection is going to be the key. I think it's going to be a huge key to Bryce Young's success in this game. If they do protect him from that big-time set of defensive tackles, I think he could expose the coverage unit a bit. If not, there's a lot of interior pressure in his face, and I think this game really tilts in New England's favor.
Carolina has to run the football better. They just do. When you look at their averages, 3.8 yards per carry average, 26 in the NFL. Only 6 missed tackles forced on the entire season. Dead last in the NFL. They have to be more dynamic. They have to be more explosive in the run game. The run blocking's not terrible. Obviously, it wasn't great in week 2 because nothing was great in week 2 when they faced the Arizona Cardinals. But week 1 versus the Jags, 70.1 team run blocking grade. Last week versus the Falcons, 68.6. So, they're capable of being decent. And this is one of the, I think, more underrated offensive lines in the NFL. They're a fringe top 10 unit in a lot of metrics and data points last season. And, okay, it's been a little bit of a slow start, and they've had some up and down in certain categories, like you pointed out there. But this is a team that is capable of running the ball and needs to run the ball at just a much more dynamic level. It can't just all be about Bryce Young. I know we all want to sit here and talk about Bryce Young and, talking about Xavier Legette and Tetairoa McMillan and the tight ends and, what Hunter Renfrow has been and all that kinds of stuff. If Carolina does not stay balanced, and when for this team, balance specifically is going to be close to a 50-50 split. It really is. They have to run the football. Bryce is not the type of quarterback yet where you can just go, yep, let him have the ball in his hands at all times. That's where the ball is most advantageous for us in the long run of a game. We're not quite there yet. We're just not. Even with how well Bryce Young played in the second half of last season, they have to run the football. And if they're not going to run the football well or often or efficient or whatever word you want to use there, because I think they all apply, they're going to struggle. They're going to struggle to be able to hold on to the ball. And I think that was a major problem for them against Jacksonville, is they just weren't able to control the time of possession the way they needed to, and the game kind of got away from them. The Arizona game, you kind of just throw that out. You had the 2 early turnovers. It was as simple as that, in my opinion. And then last week, of course, you got the turnovers that you ended up turning into points, which helped put the Falcons on their heels the whole time. And so it was good to see them play a good game last week against the Falcons, 30-0. I think that's not exactly indicative of both opponents. I think that was much more of a runaway than it really was. Carolina just has to run the football better. And this is a good opportunity for them to try to hold on to the football, to control that time of possession. And that's really what it's going to take, I think, for this team to stack up wins this season. They've got to be more controlled. And I think it's got to start this week. So that is my main talking point for the Panthers. I have Carolina winning this game. I have no idea. I coin flipped it basically because I don't know which real version of the team we're going to get this week, and I don't even know which version is the real version at this point, 3 weeks into the season, because these teams have been so up and down. I had the Panthers winning by 2. I got them winning 23-21, honestly, because I just wanted to be different than you because we've agreed too much on games so far.
We agree too much on a lot of things. We got to stop.
I know.
That.
I know it's not good.
We really do.
Good.
It's not good. And I don't know that if that means one of us is wrong more often than the other. But you can't just be thinking. You can't have people thinking the same all the time. It just doesn't work like that, Trevor. But I think I'm going with New England. I have New England by a score of 23-17. They're at home. I don't think they played a bad ball game at all last week, but they just turned the ball over. It's self-inflicted wounds, right? And I mean, you look at these two teams are both tied for second in the NFL in giveaways with 6 apiece. New England had 5 last week. Drake May has also taken the second most sacks in the league at 12. Only Cam Ward has taken more so far. I think if New England plays a clean football game, if Drake May can get rid of the ball a little bit quicker and they just don't fumble the game away like they did last week, I do think they should be able to win. I really like the matchup for their tight ends, Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper, against these Carolina linebackers that are really struggling in coverage. I know it was better last week, but that was mostly because Penix, and obviously Atlanta's predictable offense, and Penix doesn't throw over the middle a whole lot. I think Drake May could find some shots down the middle of the field through these linebackers. And I think as long as New England plays a clean game, especially, I think May is going to be protected. I think the Patriots' offensive line can win this battle because the Panthers still have the 3rd worst pass rush grade in the league. I think the Patriots are better. They just have to play a clean football game. New England 23-17.
Yeah, I think the tight end matchup is obviously a good one to emphasize there because I talked about this last week, how the Panthers have really struggled covering over the middle of the field. Michael Penix just doesn't do that, and he did it a little bit more this past week, but and he actually was effective while doing so, but there were also plenty of other opportunities for him to hit over the middle of the field that he just didn't take. Does Drake May take those throws? If he does with those 2 tight ends, who played well last week, very clearly he will lean into the tight end passing game. That could be an area where we end up seeing a little bit of an Achilles heel with the Panthers defense. Although I will say they're playing Lathan Ransom, their rookie safety, more, and they should be because I think that he is already one of the most effective and difference-making defenders on their team. He was during the preseason. He had a really good training camp, and last week he had a forced fumble. He's one of their highest-graded defenders, playing 34 snaps, which is the most that he had played, and his impact specifically comes from playing over the middle of the field. So that is a matchup that I'm looking forward to seeing as well. How much they play Ransom and how effective he can.
So are you saying if they want to throw the ball down the middle, they're going to have to pay a ransom?
You know what? That wasn't too bad. I was thinking about roasting you, but that one's not too bad.
I just got the loudest boo, I believe, from Eli in the producer's room. Just the loudest boo I've ever gotten in my life. He hated that. He absolutely hated that. That's some
soundproof glass that boo is coming through, folks, so you can understand the decibel levels that hit there. Los Angeles Chargers looking good 3 weeks into the season. They're traveling to New York to face Jackson Dart in his first start in the NFL, taking over a quarterback. Brian Daboll saying this week, it was my decision. Saying that with his full chest because I wonder how much of the decisions that he has had in the past. They're taking on Jackson Dart. Obviously, the Giants sitting here at 0-3, they need a spark here. So can he be that? What is your preview here, Dalton?
All right, so I'm going to start with the other side, and the guy that we know is just raging hot right now, and that's Justin Herbert. And I've mentioned before how, Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman, since they've come in, look, Justin Herbert's got a top 3 to 5 arm in football, maybe the strongest arm in football. Throw it downfield. Let's go. And that's what they did last year, and that's what they're continuing to do this year. 89.9 passing grade on 10-plus yard throws, 6 touchdowns. on 10-plus yard throws, 120.3 passer rating. And honestly, for as much as we've been underwhelmed by the Giants' offense and the quarterback situation, I think maybe the most disappointing unit on this team has been the secondary. I thought the addition of Javon Holland and Paulson Adebo would really stabilize this secondary. They haven't been great covering downfield, just a 28.1 coverage grade on 10-plus yard throws. You saw them against Dallas giving up deep shots. They couldn't finish the job against Kansas City on certain plays when Mahomes was holding the ball for a long time. I think that's the first thing you have to do when you're playing against Justin Herbert. They've got Quentin Johnston flying downfield. Lad McConkey's all over the place. Got some of those other young threats that are winning downfield. You have to keep things in front of you. If you're the Giants secondary, you got to find a way to keep yourself in the game. I think especially Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin at safety, this is a big game for them because they're the ones who are going to get attacked, especially I think down the seams of this defense. The Giants, They have to play better on defense. I think their defensive line's obviously an elite unit that we like, and they've got a dangerous pass rush. But I thought their back seven was going to be a lot better in coverage coming into this year, and through 3 weeks they haven't been.
I think this entire matchup is going to come down to who can defend the deep ball a little bit better, right? And you would naturally, I think, lean towards the Chargers being able to do that because they have been better at it. You mentioned the coverage grade that the Giants have had on 10 plus yard throws. Not good, a 28.1. On the Chargers side of things, they have only allowed 3 of 14 targets of 20-plus yard throws, so even deeper down the field this season, 21.4%. That's 6th best in the NFL. And then their 46.5 coverage grades on those throws is 11th best in the NFL. Now, some people might be like, well, hold on, 46.5, like that's not very good. You got to think about sort of what goes into that, because if a deep pass gets completed against you, normally it's going to be a big time throw. It's going to be a massive swing play. The EPA per pass is going to is going to go way up. Sometimes it'll lead to touchdowns as well. So naturally, letting any passes be completed of 20 or more yards is really going to tank a coverage score, unless you're getting a lot of turnovers and a lot of interceptions, which is kind of like what Philadelphia did last year. They just had so many forced incompletions and interceptions on those deep throws that they were able to have an elite coverage grade as a team when teams were passing of that distance. But I think that I should pick the Chargers here. Basically, everything tells me that the Chargers are the better team. They're the more consistent team. They're the better bet. I'm taking the Giants. I'm taking Jackson Dart to get him the win in his first start. He is somebody who I am leaning a little bit into sort of what we heard last week after Sunday Night Football. The boss man and Mike Tirico, they were talking about how much energy there is, how much positive energy and positive talk there is for Jackson Dart, how they're excited to get him out there. Obviously, they've designed some of those package plays for him to get out there in the game over the last couple of weeks, even though we haven't loved that those existed. They just want to get him out on the field. Now they are getting him out there. Confidence is the number one thing for a quarterback, right, Dalton? And if Jackson Dart is genuinely playing as confidently as we saw him play at times at Ole Miss, with an offense that is now going to be very excited for him to get in there with Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton, certainly Malik Neighbors, everything. Cam Scadaboo's running the ball well. He's catching the ball well out of the backfield. This could be a sneaky game where you actually get the best version of the Giants. You talked about how much their coverage unit has struggled so far this season, but you mentioned some of the names and some guys that can play better. And secondary play is very volatile anyway. It's very up and down just naturally. So I can convince myself, which I kind of am right now, in thinking that their best game could potentially be this upcoming weekend. Now it's going up against a really good quarterback in Justin Herbert, but can you even just limit him enough to get a win in this game here? So with the Giants hosting it, with there not being any NFL tape on Jackson Dart and what he's sort of capable of, what kind of offense they're going to run with him out there, I'll go Giants 24, Chargers 21.
To the chagrin of producer Eli back there, I'm just going to have to say your pick feels like you're throwing a dart at the wall. Okay, I'm done. I'm going to take the favorite here. I think it's a tough task. I think this Chargers team is just playing such good football right now. Their ability to prevent those explosive passes. Justin Herbert looks fantastic. And, I think you mentioned the Giants do have some excitement with the 2 rookies in the backfield with Dart, and with Tyrone Tracy out now for a few weeks with a dislocated shoulder. Cam Scadaboo is going to be the workhorse force in the backfield. I think he showed he can be that last week, but I've got the Chargers 27-16. I just think this is a very tough task for Jackson Dart in his first start. I understand there's going to be a lot of excitement this week at MetLife Stadium, but Brian Daboll's also got to call a better game, and he's got to understand that he needs Dart to take what's given to him against this defense. You're not just going to walk in and hit home runs on this defense, especially those safeties, Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, Tony Jefferson playing great football back there, and I just love Justin Herbert, man. He's playing MVP caliber football, honestly, and I think even if this game is close, I think Herbert finds a way to bail him out. I just think the Chargers are the better team here.
I do agree with you that the Chargers are the better team, but again, we have agreed too much here on this show, and I'll take a throw at the dartboard. There you go. See, it's not just you. It's not just you. Although I hope that Eli opened up your IFB and is booing at you to me, like I think that he probably was right there. The Buccaneers and the Eagles facing off yet again. It feels like they've faced off every year. Have they faced off every year over the last couple of years, really, since 2021, since 2020? This is in Tampa. This game's in Tampa. Injury reports all over the place, right? Mike Evans is not playing. Tristan Wirfs might be. Chris Godwin might be. Their offensive line's still going to get kind of beat up in Tampa. What do you think about this game? The Eagles, thrilling victory last week against the Los Angeles Rams. Buccaneers, third game-winning drive type of a game at the end of the game in a row for them. They're playing with a lot of confidence, but they're kind of beat up, and we don't know it for a fact if they're getting Wirfs and Chris Godwin back, but we do know that they won't have Mike Evans in this game. Your thoughts overall, where do you want to start with this one? Are you starting on Tampa side or Philly side?
To your point, they have played 5 times since the start of 2021, and the Bucs have won 4 of those games. So the Bucs and Todd Bowles do have kind of a little bit of the Eagles' number here, but the Bucs, I just don't know how they can keep getting through all these injuries. Now, the offensive line injuries are well documented. Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan. Now Mike Evans is going to be out 3 or 4 weeks with a hamstring. And at a certain point, like when your receiving core is just Emeka Egbuka, who's been really good, and Sterling Shepard, who's right now your second leading receiver, at a certain point, they're going to have to find a way, I think, to run the football. The problem is, very quietly, they really haven't gotten Bucky Irving going. And I know that's a lot because of the offensive line injuries, but Bucky Irving through 3 games has a 53.3 rushing grade, 3.1 yards per carry, 9 missed tackles forced, but I think that's on, I want to say 56 carries, so it's not coming at a very high rate. And, against this tough Eagles defensive line, you've got Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, Moro Ajomo inside. You've got Zach Bond and Jahad Campbell look like the league's best linebacker duo at the second level. I got to think at some point the Bucs have to get Bucky Irving going. They really do. I'm not sure how they're going to do it with the banged up offensive line with Cody Mauch out for the year. I'm not sure. I don't think I've heard that Tristan Wirfs, have you heard if he's going to be back this week or not?
Yeah, there was talk of it. Like the early reports sort of on like Sunday and Monday were that they both could potentially be back this week. But I mean, it's Wednesday, so who knows at this point.
They've got to find a way to run the football, though, because I just think at this point now, without Mike Evans, and look, I love Emeka Egbuka, and he was the best player on the field, arguably, against the Jets last week, but how much more can you ask of him and Sterling Shepard and Baker Mayfield in the passing game without getting proper support in the run game, right? And I know Baker Mayfield's been scrambling for a lot of yards, but he's not the guy you want as your team's leading rusher necessarily, right? They need to get Bucky Irving going. If they can find a way to do that against a really good Philly front seven, then more power to them. But I just think it's getting tougher and tougher with all these injuries the Bucs have, and the fact that they're 3-0 almost feels like a miracle already.
Whoa, easy.
I mean, they're a good team, I guess.
Easy. Miracle?
I mean,
that's too harsh.
3-game winning drives.
Take it back.
You're a handful of plays from 0-3.
Take it back.
I don't know, man. You almost lost to the Jets.
But they didn't. What I'm looking for in this game is, can the Bucs defend Saquon Barkley in the receiving game better? And really, do the Eagles lean into it a little bit more? So it's sort of both sides of that equation. The Bucs have struggled to cover running backs out of the backfield. Specifically, their biggest struggle was with Bijan Robinson. You go, okay, well, it's Bijan Robinson. Well, okay, it's Saquon Barkley. This is kind of the same thing, or at least it should be. The problem is the Eagles haven't really had a lot of success with him as a receiver. So Barkley's got the 8th most targets for running backs out of the backfield with 12 so far this season through 3 games. but he's just 27th among all running backs in receiving yards. So it's like they're throwing him the ball, but he's just not super dynamic about it. This could be a game where he really pops off as a receiver because the Bucs have really struggled, especially with their linebackers in coverage against really good receiving backs. And so that's something that amongst all the injuries that you have to think about there. But I think that you can get maybe Antoine Winfield Jr., Jacob Parrish, Tyke Smith. I think you can get those guys a little bit more involved in rallying to wherever the running back is going, helping out Savasier Dennis and Levante David from that linebacker level, covering those guys. And I think that they can mitigate that a little bit. But that is a X factor part of this game because, yeah, of course, we could talk about Philly's offensive line, the defensive line, the guys they have at wide receiver. Obviously, Jalen Hurts being, as stone cold as you could possibly be when it comes to doing what you need to do, staying even keeled, having your emotions in check, just going to the next play and making sure that you win football games like the Eagles have done. What is it, 18 of their last 19 games, which the one that they didn't win was what, Dalton?
Tampa Bay.
It's against Tampa Bay. I think the Tampa Bay wins this game again.
Wait a minute. No, wasn't the Tampa game last year early in the season? Wasn't the one loss to the Commanders?
Oh, I thought it was to the Bucs.
I think their Bucs loss was the last loss before the bye week before they went on this run.
Oh, so that was the one that was right before the run. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was right before because the one loss, if I remember right, was Jaden Daniels leading the Commanders down last second.
All right, so they're 18 and 20. That's different, but I think that with the Bucs playing as well and as confidently as they are now, I think this is a big if, because if Wirfs and Godwin are both playing in this game, I feel a lot better about it, obviously. But that does not change how well this Buccaneers defense is playing and how they have had the Eagles number in the past. And yeah, A.J. Brown was able to go off last week, but I think that he was picking on some lesser corners last week, and you've got corners and secondary players with the Buccaneers who are not playing for any lack of confidence at all whatsoever. So I'll say that Tampa wins this game. I'm going to go 24-21.
Sticking with Todd Bowles. All right. I think the biggest reason for that is that the blitz packages really bothered Jalen Hurts. That's a big thing. I think the two big things that the Bucs usually beat the Eagles with are the blitzes on defense and yards after catch on offense. I just question the injury part of all this. It's just so many. I mean, Mike Evans now obviously as arguably your best one-on-one receiver and a down guy that can win downfield. If Godwin and Wirfs aren't playing, I don't really know what the path is for the Bucs to win here. I think this is finally the week the injuries do get to him. I'm going to go Eagles 24-14. And I just want to say, you make a great point about Saquon in the receiving game because, I know they signed A.J. Dillon and they have Will Shipley, who I think has only played 5 snaps this season. I want to say in the first week. I don't remember. But they don't really have that guy. Even the last couple of years, they had Kenneth Gainwell who could come in on passing downs. They don't really have another guy who could come in on passing downs. I almost wonder, I'm trying to think of names right now, but I almost wonder if that's something they could think about around the trade deadline. Just get a pass-catching back to get Saquon off the field sometimes, because I am concerned with the volume that he had last year and obviously the volume and the snap count he's continuing to get this year. If they had a passing down complement to him, or if they just need to start using Will Shipley in some manner in the passing game, I think that would really go a long way towards helping them.
This PFF betting segment is brought to you by our friends over at DraftKings. We've obviously talked about some of the lines that we've talked about as we've been previewing these games here. Lines subject to change as we're doing the show on a Wednesday, but I guess the line that I like the most, I liked the Seahawks when they were getting 1.5. I still think I like the Seahawks anyways in that game, but if I'm going to pick the Giants outright, I might as well just pick them outright because they're getting 6 points in this one. So I guess that's a line I like. If I have an underdog money line pick, I guess that one would be it. Do you have a game that you're looking at, or a line or a number? I know you talked about the over for the Cowboys and the Bears last week, and it just barely didn't hit, which I was very shocked with on how much the Bears were able to clamp down on the Dallas Cowboys. But you have a line or a number that you like this week?
There's 2 unders that I'm looking at, and I think I like one slightly better. One of them is Titans Texans under 38.5. You got two teams that are really struggling to score. The Texans still have a good defense, and they're the lowest scoring team in football. Texans Titans under 38.5, but the better one might be Browns Lions under 44.5. I just think the Browns, they're gonna drag you into these ugly games, right? And I mean, I know the Ravens, when they played them, basically single-handedly almost covered that because the Browns offense was dysfunctional, but I don't see, either you're asking this game to be 24-21, which I don't know how the Browns are getting there, or the Lions would have to put up at least 35, I'd say, and I just don't know against this defense, this front seven, and I know the Lions are loaded offensively, and maybe they'll do it, but I think you're getting still, even if the Lions win it kind of convincingly on the field, I think you're still getting a pretty low-scoring game there. I'll say my favorite one is Browns-Lions under 44.5.
I like it. I do. And you guys can see all these numbers for yourself. Obviously, the NFL season's rolling. Every single touchdown brings you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Every game, it's another chance to cash in. Don't just watch the action. You can win with it. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the unmatched intensity of the NFL right to your fingertips. From the first touchdown score, anytime TD props, or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. New customers, this one's for you. You bet just $5, you get $200 in bonus bets instantly, plus score over $200 on NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Season's heating up. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Use the promo code PFF. That's promo code PFF to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first $5 bet, plus over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you've got a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or just text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problems with gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort in Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Fees may apply in Illinois. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer is for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket/terms. This is a limited time offer. Titans, Texans. Yikes. Where are we starting here with this game? These are two teams that are really struggling right now. I mentioned earlier in the show the Texans 0% right now red zone conversion percentage when it comes to getting in the red zone and scoring a touchdown. The Titans, most penalized team in the NFL, near the top of the list when it comes to drops. Just a not very disciplined team. Now you have Brian Callahan giving up play calling duties, which I don't think that was his choice. I think that we've got some drama behind the scenes with what's going on in Tennessee, but these are two teams that have not played well to start the season. There's no other way around it. Where do you want to start previewing this one, though?
All right, so I've been getting asked by several people all week, what's wrong with the Texans offense? And my answer is a lot. There is a lot wrong with the Texans offense, and I could go a million different angles with this, but one thing that jumped out at me looking especially at their passing game this week, when they see a standard rush, when things are easy to see and it's just a four-man rush and their offensive line, everything's kind of clean, they look like a respectable offense, right? You know, middle of the pack, they look okay in the passing game. When they get blitzed, they are basically completely dysfunctional. They are last in the NFL in PFF grade against the blitz on pass plays, second to last in passing grade, second to last in pass blocking grade, which those two things obviously go together. 24th in EPA per pass. Has maybe been a couple of explosive plays that carry that up a little bit, but the Titans run about a league average pass blitz rate. If they jack that up, I don't really know what Houston's answer is at this point. And obviously, the Titans have been struggling in the secondary too, but they are pretty much they are completely dysfunctional if you send any pressure at them at all, any extra pressure. So if the Titans look, I know they're banged up front. Devondre Sweat is out. The pass rush hasn't been great for them so far, but I don't think they should be afraid at all to send extra pressure because this Texans offensive line and even C.J. Stroud, they've completely crumbled under the pressure of a blitz right now, no matter who they're playing.
The over-under for this one, 38.5. So obviously Vegas does not think there's going to be a lot of points here in this game, given how both offenses are struggling. Titans offensive line's really struggling. I mean, there's not an offensive tackle on this team that has a pass blocking grade this season above a 58.7, and that's Dan Moore Jr., who has the highest mark there. The rest of them, basically in the 40s. They're going up against the best edge rush duo in the NFL. Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter, they have the highest pass rush grade amongst them as a duo at a 90.1, and the highest pass rush win percentage as an edge rush group at a 46.1. So they're going to be getting after Cam Ward a lot. He's going to be under pressure a lot. Now, Cam can handle pressure pretty well, but the problem is that I feel like his receivers don't. Calvin Ridley's been a major disappointment for them this season. He is one of a handful of veterans that I think are getting paid a good chunk of change, or at least a good portion of their salary cap, that is not giving them good return. You can talk about the drops. You talk just about the lack of targets and catches and return on investment, basically on a play-by-play basis for him. And he's getting outplayed by a rookie. And everybody knows I love Al Iomaner as much as the next guy. But it should have always been Calvin Ridley's their wide receiver 1 and Alec Iomaner's their wide receiver 2. Now we're creeping into, okay, Iomaner's probably going to lead this team in targets and catches and yards at this rate, unless Ridley really bounces back. And it's a tough week to bounce back because you're going up against a really good defense and a really good secondary. Ultimately, I just don't think the Titans have enough. This is the worst roster in the NFL. Now you've got, coaching turmoil with changing hands of who's calling plays and everything like that. I mean, I don't know how you look at what's happening in Tennessee and feel good about buying it at all whatsoever. So even with as disappointing as the Houston Texans have been all season long through 3 games, this has got to be their game. They're still a touchdown favorite in this game. For as much as Houston has struggled, they're still a touchdown favorite. I'm going with the Texans 21. I'm going with the Titans 17. I wonder if we get a little bit Cam Ward magic again, like switching things up with the play callers. Maybe that's just a little bit of extra juice they need. I don't think it's going to be enough for them to win the game, but I do wonder if we get some Cam Ward magic here in this one, because we've seen signs of it through the first 3 games. Maybe he could put it all together and they could have their best game yet. Ultimately, I do still think the Texans win this one.
Yeah, I have the same margin, but even lower scoring. I've got it 17-13 Houston. I think you could see a game. You remember, go back to week 1, the Titans losing to Denver, and that game was very ugly, and it was 20-12. I just think both of these offensive lines don't give their offenses much of a chance to succeed, but the Texans do have the better defense. The secondary, the edge rush duo of Anderson and Hunter, obviously, is just fantastic. I think Cam Ward's going to be under a lot of pressure. He'll get himself in trouble if he gets late in the play and he starts turning the ball over as well. I think the Texans, they so badly need a win in this game. If they lose this game, all panic is going to break loose in Houston. But tough defensive game. I'll take Houston to win it. I think their defense gets enough done in this game to shut down Cam Ward.
The Indianapolis Colts traveling to LA to take on the Los Angeles Rams. I think this is a very fun game because the Rams are red hot as a team right now. They're not undefeated, but I feel like they are firing on all cylinders. They are going up against a team that is undefeated, that has one of the highest EPA per play averages in the NFL. Can't remember if they are number 1, but if they are not, they are right there for how good this offense has been and how efficient it has been through 3 weeks. This is a fun matchup. I don't think a lot of people would have said that, 4 weeks ago before the season gets kicked off, but I am really looking forward to this game. Dalton, where are we starting with this one? You want to start with the Rams or the Colts?
Look, I think the idea is when you're playing the Rams, you better disrupt Matthew Stafford in the pocket or he's just going to tee off on you. He's throwing the ball as well as anybody right now, and he's got the quickest average time to throw. So knowing that his offensive line has not been very good so far this year, he is speeding up his process more than he ever has. And in a clean pocket, he is just throwing the ball just lights out. 91.6 passing grade, 9% big-time throw rate is fantastic. And then again, you see that last number. The pockets aren't clean because of the pass protection. They're clean because of his processing and his quick decision-making. Matthew Stafford is completely in control right now. Puka Nacua looks great. Devontae Adams looks great. I think Nacua could be in line for a huge game if the Colts don't get any pressure because of all the zone coverage Lou Anarumo puts together. You can kind of see when you get heavier zone coverage teams, it's going to be a Nacua day. When you get heavy man coverage teams, it's going to be an Adams day. Not that Nacua won't get his still, but those are the times when Devontae Adams will get it. I think it's a huge Nacua day. I think Stafford, if the Colts don't get any pressure, and they really haven't been, can have a good day. The Colts are bottom 7 in pretty much every pass rush metric that we have. They have the 4th lowest pass rushing grade, so they need Leatu Latu, DeForest Buckner, those guys up front to dominate and find a pass rush, because if Stafford is clean back there, he's going to tear them apart.
I'm looking at the Rams defense versus the Colts offense. Rams are sixth right now through 3 games in run defense grade as a team at a 75.2. They had an 81.3 run defense grade last week against the Philadelphia Eagles, so that their best competition when it came to defending the ground game. And so they played very well against the Eagles in an area where they really want to, first and foremost, try to set everything up front and in the run game and on the ground. Rams were pretty dang good at defending it. Now, on the flip side here, what makes this matchup interesting is Jonathan Taylor's been fantastic all year. He might be the front runner for Offensive Player of the Year now at this point, the way that he has been playing through 3 weeks. It has allowed the Colts to see only 9 dropbacks of 3rd and 7 or more. 9 dropbacks in 3 games of 3rd and 7 or more. That is, as you would expect, the least amount in the NFL. Now, when you look at Daniel Jones on those passes, Daniel Jones has been very good on 3rd down. I think he's been good on the money downs. I think he has been clutch in a lot of his passes, but a lot of those have also come with a shorter distance to the sticks. So when you look at those 9 dropbacks of 3rd and 7 or more, they are 21st in the NFL and 22nd in the NFL at EPA per play and passing grade on those dropbacks. So Daniel Jones has been good, but Dalton, I think in this game, he is going to see more dropbacks of 3rd and long than he has the entire season. Maybe he might see more in this game. Well, I don't think it's going to happen, but he's going to see a higher percentage in this game, in my opinion, than he has in any game that he has so far this year, with them being 3-0. So it's just going to be a different challenge, a higher challenge for Daniel Jones. They're going to have to ask him to beat the Rams with his arm more than I think some of these other opponents have challenged them to do so up to this point in the season. So that is, I think, a big-time matchup. If the Rams are able to neutralize Jonathan Taylor a little bit more, put the Colts behind the sticks and have those longer 3rd and down distances, can Daniel Jones remain as effective? Can he still be that type of quarterback in this game? I think the Rams win this one 28-17. I got a lot of faith in the Rams. I think that this is a fantastic football team. Could have very well gone into Philly and beat them last week, if not for the block kicks that we saw. I'm still a big-time Rams believer, so I'll go 28-17 as my final score here.
Yeah, I agree. I think we got a really good football game here. I have the Rams too, but 27-21. I don't think there's any reason after this game, if the Rams win, that we're going to have any ill will towards the Colts. I just think you're talking about a tough road game against a really good team, a really good quarterback in Matthew Stafford. The Colts pass rush does concern me, or I should say the lack thereof, although they're against a Rams offensive line that's been struggling to pass protect, but it's really going to be about Stafford getting rid of the ball quickly. And on the other side, I think it's just a credit to the Colts. And, like I mentioned on the Monday show, they're tied for the fewest negative plays in football. They keep themselves in those good down and distance situations. I think the fun matchup really is on the interior in their run defense with the Colts offensive line against Poona Ford and Braden Fisk in this run defense, both of them over a 77 run defense grade. If the Colts can run the football, if they can have balance and put themselves in good down and distance and hold on to that time of possession, I think they're going to be really solid in this game and have a chance to win. But you're right, you don't want to be in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 against this Rams defense in this pass rush.
Yeah, it's a tough sled. Nobody wants to be doing that against this team. We got about 6 games left, 6 more games that we're previewing here. But for anybody out there that might be in a hiring position for your business, we know this is tough, right? Sometimes you're sending out the job posting, and it's like, okay, well, here's exactly what we need. Now you're waiting for a number of candidates. Maybe you're not finding the most qualified candidates. Maybe you're having a tough time getting in touch with the right candidates. Whatever it is, the future of hiring looks so much brighter because of ZipRecruiter's latest tools and features to help speed up and find the right people for those roles, so you save all sorts of valuable time. Now you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. It's a situation where, like I said, maybe you're looking at a job posting and you're saying, God, we just can't find the candidate that we feel like checks all the boxes right now and is able to grow as our company grows. This is all stuff that helps you get to that and find that right candidate. With ZipRecruiter's new advances, you can easily find and connect with qualified candidates in minutes. See a candidate you're really interested in, you can unlock their contact info instantly. Over 320K new resumes are added to ZipRecruiter monthly, which means that you can reach more potential hires and fill roles sooner. No wonder why ZipRecruiter is the #1 rated hiring site on G2 at ZipRecruiter.com/audio. Use ZipRecruiter and save time hiring. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. If you go to ZipRecruiter.com/audio right now, you could try it for free. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/audio. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. Jags and the 49ers. Oh, man, 49ers, she's still going through so many injuries. Obviously, now down Nick Bosa for the entire season. Man, it's just been so tough for this team. A talented roster when they're fully healthy, but they've just really been going through it through the first 3 weeks. However, they're 3-0. What do we think about this one? Where do you want to start this discussion?
I want to start with Jacksonville's defense because I'm just so impressed by their improvement in coverage. They were one of the worst coverage teams in the NFL last year, Trevor. Right now, they are second in the NFL in coverage grade. I think the MVP of this team, really, through their 2-1 start, is Anthony Campanile, their defensive coordinator. I think he's been fantastic getting these guys to the right spots in a lot heavier amount of zone coverage that they're using than last year. And really, what intrigues me is their ability to defend the middle of the field. I'm just going to rattle off their highest graded coverage defenders right now. You've got Devin Lloyd, linebacker, Foye Ikualan, linebacker, Luakan, linebacker, Jordan Lewis, slot corner, Eric Murray, safety, Antonio Johnson, safety, Dennis Gardeck, linebacker. I think what you're looking at here is the Jags' ability to defend the middle of the field so well. They don't miss tackles. They've got 4 interceptions between the numbers this year, most in the NFL. Best coverage grade in the NFL when they're defending between the numbers. And we know Kyle Shanahan, whether it's Brock Purdy or Mac Jones, he's going to want to attack the middle of the field. It's what the Niners are so good at. Yes, with their play action schemes, but they just find so many different ways to condense formations and to attack the middle of the field. This is where the Jaguars have really been excelling, and it's funny because the biggest names right now are their corners. They're outside corners with Tyson Campbell and Travis Hunter, but it's their ability to defend the middle of the field. They have committed so many resources now to saying, listen, we can't have teams gashing us with these easy throws down the pipe. We got to make them earn it on the outside the numbers. They're doing that right now. They're middle of the field coverage defenders, and then the zone schemes that they're adding into it. They're playing fantastic football. They're not missing tackles. They're picking the ball off. It's really tough right now to throw right through the teeth of this Jags defense. If you're going to do it, they're going to make you do it on the outside one-on-one against Campbell and Hunter.
I wish I had something, more deep and analytical about the Jags on the offensive side of the ball. But I think the offensive line is playing decently well. I think that Liam Cohen's doing a great job in the run game, something that I don't think people emphasized enough going into the season. We wanted to talk about the passing game, what he would be for Trevor Lawrence. They drafted Travis Hunter, look at Brian Thomas Jr., like all that kinds of stuff. But in reality, Liam Cohen was fantastic with the Buccaneers because he totally improved the efficiency of their run game. Yes, Bucky Irving is a great talent, and that's the reason why, but it's also a Liam Cohen thing. He's doing the same thing in Jacksonville. All that is on script. Dalton, the fact of the matter is the wide receivers in Jacksonville have to catch the football. It's as simple as that at this point. This team has been competitive in every single game. They're a good offense. They have 13 drop passes. That's more than any team in the NFL by 3. The Cowboys are next with 10. The Panthers are right below them with 9. You got 13 drops through 3 games? That is crazy. And it's also coming from a lot of your stars, specifically Brian Thomas Jr. First couple of weeks for Brian Thomas Jr. were ugly. Last week he's dropping passes. Parker Washington's dropping passes. You've got to catch the football. I can sit here and talk about, I want him to attack deep a little bit more. I want Lawrence to be able to, get to different reads a little bit with a little bit faster pace and a little bit more comfort, a little bit more control, whatever. I think Lawrence has been fine. Perfect? No. Totally fine. You got to catch the football. That's basically it at this point. I don't really know how to judge this Jacksonville Jaguars team until the wide receivers do the basic act of catching the football. And I'm not saying that every pass has been super easy. It never is in the NFL. But you can't have 13 drop passes through 3 weeks. You're not going to win football games. You're just not going to convert the way that you need to. You're not going to march the football down the way that you need to. You're not going to score enough points. So the run game is good. I think the offensive line is playing well. I think Trevor Lawrence is playing well enough. I just can't judge much of this team outside of them needing to catch the football more. And I think that that's just what it comes down to for them.
Yeah.
I have the Jags winning this game. I think the Niners are just too hurt. And I think that drops are something that are frustrating, but I think that they are something that is very easily fixed. So being more focused, being more disciplined in your technique or just how you are as a receiver when the ball arrives, not taking your eyes off of it to peek upfield or think about what you're going to do yards after the catch. I think that this could be a quick fix for Jacksonville. And I like a lot of the rest of what they bring to the table. You mentioned how they've been on the defensive side of the ball. I think they're cooking on that side of the ball. I still think that that is going to be good this upcoming week. I think the run game is going to be efficient. If the offensive line keeps playing well, if you tell me that they have 0 drops this upcoming week, I think they win this football game because they've shown signs to be good enough to do that before these drops. I'll say Jaguars 28, San Francisco 49ers 21.
Yeah, I think to your point on Lawrence about the drops and everything, and I know a lot of people get on Lawrence for ball placement and different things, but our quarterback charting among quarterbacks with at least 25 attempts this year, we have him as the 8th most accurate quarterback in football, and his uncatchable rate is middle of the pack. It's not fantastic, but it's good enough. I think when you look at this Jaguars team, they just need to execute better, and if they executed better, they'd probably be 3-0 right now. This to me is maybe the hardest game of the entire slate to pick. I have the Jaguars also 20-19. I'm going with your old one point score. Just have no idea who's going to win this game. We don't know yet if it's going to be Brock Purdy or Mac Jones. I think Nick Bosa being out is a huge problem for the 49ers defensive line. And I think the big matchup for the 49ers on offense is going to be Christian McCaffrey, especially in the receiving game against Devin Lloyd and Foye Oluokun, who have both been fantastic in coverage. I just wonder if the Niners do have to throw the ball to the outside. Is Ricky Pearsall going to win those battles as consistently as he has been against Travis Hunter, against Tyson Campbell? And is Mac Jones or Brock Purdy going to be able to make those throws to the outside, or is this Jags team going to continue to be so stingy in the middle that it's going to cause the Niners problems? There's a lot of different factors in this game. I think it'd be a wild football game. I will squeak by there with Jacksonville with a closer score than you have it.
Right now, Jacksonville's getting 3.5, so I kind of like that one. If I was betting one of these teams against the spread, I would feel good about a team getting more than field goal here, even with Jacksonville being the road team with this game in San Francisco. The Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Baltimore Ravens. Wildly enough, one of these teams is going to be 1-3 after this game, which is kind of hard to believe. I suppose that it is possible for them to be 2-1-1. But that would just piss everybody off. Where are you starting with this one? You want to talk about the Ravens or the Chiefs?
I'm going to go with the Ravens. And, it's weird because one of the games, the Buffalo game, was really more so on their defense, obviously, and Derrick Henry had a huge day. But the last 2 weeks, this has not been the same rushing offense we're used to seeing with Derrick Henry in the backfield. Obviously, the fumbles, he's fumbled in all 3 games. It was a huge one against the Bills and then a huge one against the Lions that you could argue cost them the game. But 43.1 rushing grade the last 2 weeks for Derrick Henry. 23 carries for 73 yards, and that includes a 28-yard touchdown against the Lions. So his other 22 carries, he's sitting at about 2 yards a carry flat. Only 1 missed tackle forced, and that touchdown was the one explosive run. But you see that bottom number there. I think teams are just so committed now to saying, you know what, we cannot let Derrick Henry beat us. Last year they were 11-0 when he ran for at least 90 yards. They're, of course, 0-1 this year when he runs for 90 yards in that Bills game, but that's obviously not his fault. Teams are just committing to loading the box and saying, nope, not at all. We're just going to make Lamar beat us with his arm and with the receivers because we are still more afraid of Derrick Henry and getting whacked on the ground by these 2 guys than we are of the passing game. We will if Lamar is going to beat us with his arm, then so be it. But they have to find a way to either break through in the passing game and get all these defenders out of the box. 17 of his last 23 carries are with at least 8 guys in the box. And you could see, Dan Campbell against the Lions, even with the Lions, I should say, against the Ravens, even talked about, we took a little bit of the Steelers mentality of getting physical and this and that. I think the other thing they took was putting more defensive linemen flatter across the line of scrimmage. When the Steelers play the Ravens, they're in that classic 3-4 front a lot with 5 and sometimes even 6 defensive linemen across the ball, just not allowing Derrick Henry to break through that first level at all costs. So the Ravens, again, they either have to loosen the boxes up and Lamar's got to throw on early downs to loosen it up, or Derrick Henry's going to have to power through better than he has the last couple of games. Obviously, the fumbling is in the spotlight, but overall, the Ravens just haven't been all that efficient in the run game the last 2 weeks.
On the other side of things, I think that Kyle Hamilton is playing really well. Roquan Smith has played well at times. I don't know many other Chiefs defenders that are really playing that well. They don't have Nnamdi Madubuike last week, neck injury, and so neck injuries are kind of tricky. Like, yeah, he could be back out there this week, or it could be something where he's missing a significant amount of time. When you look at the Baltimore Ravens right now, and I was shocked to see this, 41.8 run defense grade, It's dead last in the NFL through 3 weeks. 0.123 EPA per rush allowed. That is once again dead last in the NFL. This team is not nearly as stout up front as they have been in the past, or what a lot of people just might think that the Ravens have the potential to be, especially with Madubuike not out there last week. It was a struggle for them. We have talked about how the Chiefs, specifically when it comes to their running backs, so if you exclude Patrick Mahomes and what he does as a rusher, their running backs have not been effective at all this year. 62.4 rushing grade with just their running backs this year. Now, last week I talked about, okay, Pacheco had some efficient numbers, but they weren't really leaning on him. They haven't really made that part of their identity. This is a game where you maybe would not think that this is the case, but if you look at the numbers, this is a game where the Chiefs could actually have their best rushing output for how poorly the Ravens have played defending the run over the first 3 weeks of the season. This one's in KC as well. I think the Chiefs have an opportunity to be more balanced on offense, and because of that, I'm going with Kansas City here. I think that Kansas City wins this game 27-24. I think it'll be close. Obviously, anytime that these teams match up, I think that it will be, but I have my doubts about how the Ravens are playing on the defensive side of the ball, specifically defending the run. And if you open things up to not make them one-dimensional, as they have been through the first couple of weeks, then I think that's where you really get in trouble with this team. So I think the Chiefs win this one at home, and as shocking as it is, I think that the Ravens drop to 1-3.
Yeah, this is a tough game to read, too, because I think you're going to have two teams incredibly desperate. And to your point about the run game, I mean, the Ravens, they just don't have a lot of guys playing very well on the inside at defensive tackle. They have benched Trenton Simpson at linebacker for Teddy Buchanan, which is an interesting decision considering Simpson's their highest graded run defender. And it's just not been going well at any level of the defense in the run game. But I'm in between on this. It's so dangerous to pick against the Chiefs at Arrowhead, obviously, but I still think that Chiefs game against the Giants told us a lot more about the Giants than Kansas City. Kansas City, for the most part, to me, Patrick Mahomes made 4 or 5 plays that made the difference in the game, but for the most part, I do like the way their secondary is playing the last couple weeks. They've gotten it together, but for the most part, they look like the same team we saw the first 2 weeks that went 0-2. It's just the Giants are worse and their quarterback situation's dysfunctional. I'm taking the Ravens 23-20. I think it's a very hard game to read. I know the Ravens a lot of times in these big spots have not come through late in games, but I still don't trust this Chiefs offense. I don't know that I trust their pass rush to do the same things that the Lions did this past Monday. I'm taking Baltimore 23-20, get a big road win.
I don't disagree with the points that you're making, although I will say there's probably no place I would want to go least, hopefully that made sense, than Arrowhead as a get-right game. This is going to be the very last stadium that I would want to go to have a get-right game, especially when the Chiefs are sitting here at 1-2 and staring down the barrel of going 1-3 while the rest of their division looks a lot better and a lot more competitive. So this is one that, just because of how much the Ravens defense is struggling overall, I got to take Patrick Mahomes in this one with him being at home.
It would be quite surprising if this game didn't just come down to a last-second field goal one way or the other. It's going to the wire. This is a tough game to get a read on right now.
Chicago Bears traveling to Vegas to take on the Las Vegas Raiders. Walt was talking about this one a little bit earlier in the show. I think he was saying that he grew up just in Illinois watching the Bears, and now he's a Raiders fan. So this is a tough game for our guy Walt in the chat. I'm wondering what he thinks about this one. Well, he keeps saying the phrase lowly Raiders, so I think that he is going to say that the Bears are going to win this one. But what do you think? Which side of the ball you want to talk about first, Dalton?
All right, I want to see week to week because we got a lot more of it last week against Dallas, and I know Dallas is bad, but I want to see week to week what Ben Johnson's going to continue to add to this offense. And one thing I'm intrigued with is the Bears going with a lot more motions and shifting in their offensive play calling last week. So the first 2 weeks of the season, I believe they had the 5th lowest motion rate in the NFL. Last week, 76% motions, 3rd highest in the NFL in week 3 on those plays, 7 7.7 yards per play, 11.4 yards per pass, just outstanding setting up pass plays with the motions and pre-snap formation changing, and a 0.24 EPA per play is fantastic. The Raiders, when they face motion, and Washington last week especially absolutely killed them with motion, when they face a play with motion, they have the lowest coverage grade in the NFL. I want to see how much more Ben Johnson adds to the offense, how much more Caleb Williams can handle. And again, it's going to be progressive on a week-to-week basis. Caleb's going to get a little more and some stuff he hasn't even done before. But I really like the layers to this offense that were added. The trick plays got a lot of the spotlight too against Dallas last week. But when you're talking about motions, two things it can do for you. One is it can tell you what coverage they're in. And two, especially with a team that plays as much zone coverage as a team like the Cowboys last week or the Raiders this week, you can really start to dictate spacing once you find out the habits of those second-level defenders, the linebackers and box safeties that are dropping down and have to react laterally. Even the Commanders, I thought, did a great job against the Raiders of motioning, making linebackers shift and commit towards the motion, and then backside cutting on these runs that they were getting, and the linebackers were then out of position, right? It's a lot of guys who haven't played together before, haven't communicated a lot before. So I think Ben Johnson is going to continue to ratchet up this use of motion and shifting in his offense and really try to control the spacing and the tempo and everything of the Raiders defense, especially in zone coverage.
You know, what I really want to talk about on the Raiders side of things is their lack of run game. But I think that we've talked about that sort of ad nauseum over the last couple of weeks. And the fact of the matter is, like, I just don't know if it gets better, right? It feels as though the people who cover that team and the fans of that team are questioning very loudly what the thought process is with Pete Carroll and his son, who's the offensive line coach, of how they're deploying their offensive linemen, with Jackson Powers-Johnson now at guard and Jordan Meredith has kicked into center, and they sort of just like made that decision during training camp and they stuck with it. There wasn't really a competition there, at least it didn't seem like it. And now Jackson Powers-Johnson is sort of like splitting time with Alex Kappa. Like, it just feels very confusing, especially because the numbers don't back it up, right? I mean, like, the numbers for the Raiders offensive line the previous season were good. That's why this team opted to draft Ashton Genty over taking a guy like Armand Membou in the top 10, because I thought that they were pretty good on the offensive line and that group was ascending. This year they switch it up, and very clearly the changes are bad. I mean, we're 3 weeks into it, and this is one of the least effective run blocking units and rushing units in the NFL. So I would love to sit here and talk about how that needs to be a lot better, because it does for the Raiders. But the fact of the matter is I can't just sit here and say, like, well, hopefully it's better this week. And instead I have to take the reality as it is and say, well, I don't think the Raiders are going to be great on the ground. So guess what that means needs to happen, Dalton? Geno Smith's got to be a flamethrower, and he's not afraid to do it. But how does that look against the Chicago Bears? Well, specifically, passes of 15 or more yards this season. In week 1, the Chicago Bears had a 31.7 team coverage grade on such throws. Week 2 was worse. It was a 26.1. But then last week, it was better. It was a 51.1. So it's like, all right, well, okay, we're getting a little bit better here. They're playing a little bit better. Like I said earlier in the show, secondary work is just very up and down anyways. That's just sort of a wave that you have to ride with throughout the season. It kind of just, Dalton, I think that this game entirely depends on which version of the Chicago Bears secondary is showing up in this one. Is it the one for the first 2 weeks? Because if it is, Geno Smith might throw for 350 again. And I think that we might have an absolute shootout. If we get the unit that we saw last week against the Dallas Cowboys, well, then all of a sudden I really favor the Bears to get a win in this game. So that is what it comes down to for me. Again, I would love to talk about the Raiders getting better on the ground game, but what am I going to say? Hey, put Jackson Powers-Johnson back at center where he belonged the whole time, where he played well last year, where he played really well when he was at Oregon? I feel like that's kind of an obvious, but it's not happening right now, so I'm not going to sort of just get into that and say, well, they need to do this if I don't think that it's realistic. I think the Bears win this game. I'll say they win 27-24. It'll be a fun one. And depending on how the Bears secondary plays, I think that's where the over-under really comes into play.
I think you very well could get a high-scoring game. These two teams are two of the bottom 8 coverage teams overall in the NFL. The one big difference for the Bears last week, too, is they actually got a pass rush. They pressured Dak Prescott on 40% of his dropbacks. That was under 25% for the Bears against J.J. McCarthy and Jared Goff the 2 weeks before. So if they can actually get a pass rush going as well, that obviously helps. I think this Raiders team in pass protection is still solid. They're just not run blocking very well. But I have the Bears 28 28-24. I think similar outcome, and it is going to depend on just, which are we getting last week's more consistent version of Caleb Williams. As long as he's been in a clean pocket, he's been really solid, and I think Ben Johnson adding layers to this offense helps a lot, but we could get a shootout in this game considering the two offenses and the way they can be high-flying at times and the way the secondaries have both really struggled throughout the season so far. I'm with you, though. I'm going to take the Bears. I feel a little better about them and what we saw coming off of last week against Dallas.
All right, we're talking to Terron Armstead next. He's going to preview our trench matchup of the week here as the Packers travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. But before we get to that, got to talk to all the parents out there. Parenting, it's filled with high-pressure decisions all the time, right? It can be difficult to tell whether we're making the right decisions for our kids, but here's a decision that you can make that can be an easy decision that you feel good about, and that's opening up a UGMA Kids Investment Account with Fabric, starting their investment journey early, and giving them a financial head start. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. The Kids Investment Account for Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Fabric has partnered with Gerber Life, trusted by millions of families like yours for over 50 years. The whole thing is online. Setting up an account can take you as little as just 5 minutes and get started with investing as little as $1 a day, honestly. And then manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. There's no contribution limits to it. Multiple tax advantages. SIPC insured up to $500,000. There's no commission fees to it. Just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. When they're kids, maybe you're dipping into it for summer camps, after school activities, books, tuition, things like that. And then when they're adults, they can use the funds for maybe you're helping them buy their first house, first car, start a business, whatever that looks like. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. It's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, tease it a little bit there. Let's hear from Terron Armstead as he helped us preview Micah Parsons coming back to Dallas and what we can expect from that matchup. Let's hear it. All right, back with our guy, Terron Armstead, who's mid-workout. I want you guys to know how much he wants to tune into the show. Make sure that he gives us his... This man is mid-workout right now. You can see the sweat going. He's getting after it, and now he's about to give us some trench analysis. Terron, before we get into... sort of the trench breakdown where we're going to talk about Micah Parsons, his return to Dallas, all that good stuff. But what are we working out today? What are we getting into? You got to let me know. What's the workout regimen today?
Yeah, just post-retirement work, man. Just staying in shape. I've been cutting weight. I'm down 40 pounds since my last game, so I'm grinding.
Look at you. Look at you. The man's just going to be a sleek fighting machine out here now that he's post-retirement. Okay, now I do have to ask you this one thing. I feel like all the trench players, whether it's offense or defense that I talk to post-retirement, they say to themselves, oh, hey, you know what? When I get into retirement, I'm still going to work out. I'm still going to be in shape. I'm still going to do all this. But I am never touching a squat bar ever again for as long as I live. Have you squatted once post-retirement? You got to let me know.
Squat bar? Not at all. Not at all. I do dumbbell squat. I mean, I wasn't touching a squat bar while I was playing. Oh. Probably like the second half of my career. Yeah, that was over with.
See, this is why we have you on. This is the expertise, because we got to get the answers to things like that. I know the trench players, they're always crazy about making sure the knees are healthy and everything, not putting too much stress on the spine, all that good stuff. So you're well ahead of the game. You've been preserving the knees and the spine for years, so we didn't even need to ask you that. Okay, so Micah Parsons, he's got his return to Dallas. Cowboys, they're facing off against the Green Bay Packers. Packers coming off of a bit of a surprising loss from the from their matchup against the Cleveland Browns. I know our producer Tyler's very happy to make sure that I got that into the show once again. But hey, he's going up against Tyler Guyton, Terrence Steele. These are guys that he knows very well from practice, obviously, with his time with the Dallas Cowboys. So just your thoughts. I know that when you remember the Dolphins, you didn't have that return to home in New Orleans, anything like that. But just any thoughts on sort of the emotions of coming back home for Parsons and what this game might mean to him before we get into the matchup specifically?
That's exactly where I'll start, the emotions, especially in Parsons' situation specifically, because the situation went sour so fast in Dallas. All the dialogue and the verbiage back from Jerry Jones and company. So I don't think they had great closure. You know what I mean? I don't think they ended on the best terms. Mike is going to come in off an upset loss too, so they will be hungry as a team, but he will personally look to destroy and dominate the Cowboys. He is familiar with the two guys that he'll be going against. The most difficult part about Michael Parsons is you never know where he's going to line up.
Right.
So a lot of these guys, you can assign a tight end or you can slide the protection right to him because you know where he will be before you get out the huddle. This is not the case for Micah. Micah can be over the center. He can be over your slot receiver. Never know. So that makes it really hard to game plan for him.
So talk to me about that like double agent intel that you kind of get to have. Do we overblow that as a media side of things? Like, oh, this guy, played for this team. That means like, he knows all the tricks to the trade. He knows exactly what their play calls are going to be, all that kinds of stuff. Like, now, I was going to say, like, is that overblown or is there actually something to that? Because Micah was, around for training camp and everything, even for like this year going into it. He didn't play a game with them, but is that intel part of it as much of a deal as we as the media sort of make it out to be?
I mean, like the opposing side's coach, so Mike is on defense in Green Bay. So the offensive coordinator might grab him like, hey, what were you guys' calls or checks in this situation? What did you do when we go from 2-by-2 formation motion over to 3-by-1? You know what I mean? So those conversations can help. But other than that, it's not really much information that can be shared. Like the film gonna tell you the story. You might be able to get some insight on a few calls. All right, we call this diamond, or we check to this. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's about as far as it's going as far as double agent.
So the guys he's going to be going up against, at least if it's on the edge. Obviously, you said Micah can basically line up anywhere, but Tyler Guyton, Terron Steele, they haven't really fared well against a lot of guys this season. They're ranked either somewhere in the 50s or 60s when it comes to overall blocking grade, pass blocking grade, out of about 70 eligible offensive tackles that we have so far, 3 weeks into the season. So they're not playing too well in particular, but when it comes to Parsons, do you feel like he is going to mainly be more of that edge rusher, or do you think they are going to switch it up? Do you think that he is going to be kicking inside a lot? Because the Packers, very clearly, they're not afraid to do those things. And so when it just comes to this matchup in general, what do you think is going to happen here with these offensive tackles versus Parsons himself? Yeah,
game plan wise, I don't see the Cowboys allowing him to rush the edge one-on-one, like ever. Probably not once. This game, it'll be some form of help, chip, or slide. So I think game plan wise for the Packers, you have to move him around. You have to find ways to get him a one-on-one matchup, and it'll only be a few of those opportunities. But if I'm the Cowboys, I'm most definitely having a plan in place for Micah. What makes it harder is those first and second downs, like the quick game and those type things, because you got 5 guys going out, so it's really hard to add extra help. Third down, you build in a plan just for third down. Like, let's find Micah, let's put somebody else over there with him. First, second down, those are the situations where Micah can really be disruptive.
Well, Terron, we appreciate it every single week. We specifically appreciate it this week, seeing the sweat pouring, middle of the workout. He's coming to give you guys these analysis. He's making sure he gets it in every week. Terron, we appreciate it, my friend. Get back to it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, bro.
I appreciate Terron joining us as always here. Dalton, what do you want to start talking about here with this game? Cowboys, Packers. What do you got?
I mean, let's stick with the obvious. Let's just take a look at Micah Parsons, and I'm sure if the Cowboys didn't already know what they're missing, they're going to be finding out this Sunday. And honestly, you look at the numbers, and they're missing an elite player, a guy with a 91.5 pass rush grade in his first 3 games with the Packers, just under a 17% pressure rate, which is usually higher, and I'm sure it'll get there this season. 27% pass rush win rate is ridiculous. That's top 5 in the NFL. And the Cowboys, as I just mentioned as we were previewing the Bears game, they have not been good in pass protection, and the injuries are racking up. Their starting center, Cooper Beebe, has been out. Tyler Booker is now on IR with an ankle injury. So if you look at the front 5 of this Cowboys offensive line right now, Tyler Guyton, pass blocking grade, 37.5. It's going to be Tyler Smith, 53.8. Brock Hoffman at center, 50. TJ Bass is probably going to play right guard. He had a 45 pass blocking grade last year when he played, and Terron Steele with a 50. So think about that. All 5 of their starters, 54 or below pass blocking grade against not just Micah Parsons and him moving all over the place. I've told you, I think he's the most unique pass rusher in football, but Rashawn Gary and Lucas Van Ness coming off maybe his best career game last week, and Devontae Wyatt, and everything this team has on their defensive line. It's a huge mismatch. And even without Parsons, it might be a problem just with Gary and the rest. But the fact that you have Micah Parsons in there coming back for revenge in this game, and it could be such a huge mismatch between the Packers D-line as a whole and the Cowboys offensive line down 2 starters. Dak Prescott better get rid of the football quickly or he's going to have a real problem.
Yeah, Dak, I think just the whole offense overall struggled more last week than we thought they were going to against the Chicago Bears. We sure need to see the Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys sort of version of that offense, even without CeeDee Lamb, that we saw in week 1 against the Philadelphia Eagles, or I think the Packers are going to have an easy time with this one. I really do. Now, the only chance that I think the Cowboys really have in this game is, of course, if Dak goes nuclear and plays like an MVP candidate. Anytime that's the case, the quarterback position has so much sway. But specifically, the Packers' offensive line was horrendous last week. Now, we have talked about how good the Cleveland Browns defensive line is, so it's not like they were bad against anybody. But I don't know if I've ever seen this, Dalton. An 11.1 pass blocking grade as a team last week against the Browns. 20 pressures allowed.
Yeah.
No offensive lineman on the team had a pass blocking grade above 40 last week. It's rough.
Not great. I think the one that sticks in my mind, well, there's 2. One's an NFL one, one's a college one. The one NFL one that sticks in my mind is the Bengals in the Super Bowl against the Rams had like a 13 or something. And then I got to find the official number. But last I checked, and this is a college one, I have to bring this up for fun. Your Florida Gators against Miami last week. Oh, it moved. It was almost at a 0. It's up to an 11.8. Last week against Miami.
11.8 is better than 11.1 that the Packers got last week.
It is.
I'll take it. I'll take it. You can't. No, you can't dunk on me.
No,
Omit that. Omit that from the podcast. Never happened. Never happened.
Still not great.
No, Packers one is worse. Obviously, if you have a pass blocking grade that bad, literally anything can happen. But I don't think it's going to be that bad for this team. Even though, I saw Zach Thomas is out. Right? Did I see that correctly? Did Zach Thomas out? Or did I just see that he was...
Let's look into that. I mean, honestly, with as poorly as the Cowboys are rushing the passer as well.
Okay, Adam Schefter.
Unlikely to play, not expected.
Yes, unlikely to play.
I mean, that matters, but I also think your problem is Dallas without Parsons really has no pass rush, right? And
right.
You talk about this same thing going the other way. The Browns are the number 1 pass rush team in football. Cowboys are 24th. Oh, okay, so I mean, it's not the worst, but it's also not great. We know the Cowboys have not been getting a whole lot of pressure because, well, they traded Micah Parsons. So that's sort of the big story on both sides in this game. Can they get any? Because if they don't get pressure on Jordan Love and they let him tee off down the field on this secondary, I mean, we just saw what Caleb Williams did to him. We've seen what Russell Wilson did to him. The Eagles just kind of chose not to throw the ball downfield in week 1, but they cannot let Jordan Love get a free ride into this secondary because they're going to have a serious problem.
Man, you've got the Packers winning big. I see your score here, 34-20. You have the Packers winning by 14. I got the Packers winning 28-23. I think it's going to be a little bit closer, but yeah, it's 14 points. You really do not believe in this Cowboys secondary at all.
The secondary has been awful for the last 2 weeks. Their offensive line is super beat up, and the pass protection's not good, and they don't have CeeDee Lamb. I don't know, boy. The avenue for the Cowboys winning this game really is just maybe they stop the run and they make Love drop back, but I think this is a big-time bounce-back game for Jordan Love, too. I know the Browns are the Browns, and in Cleveland it's even tougher, but you're going from facing that team to facing this defense. I think Jordan Love's got to feel like he's got an opportunity to bounce back here. At 34-20, I'm in on Green Bay.
Monday night doubleheader for Monday Night Football. First one is your Jets traveling to Miami to face the Dolphins. Wonder if Mike McDaniel's coaching for his job here. You lose to the Jets at home, that might be it. What do you think about this game? Where do you want to start?
I think I agree with that, because then you're talking about the third divisional loss in a row, and you're 0-4, and your team just is. Now, they showed signs of life the last 2 weeks against New England and against Buffalo. Obviously, that Buffalo game was tied in the fourth quarter. But, the big thing for me, I think the more shocking part, the offensive line we expected to be bad. The offense as a whole, not consistent. Tua's not great, especially behind that line. But I think the most shocking part with this Dolphins team, I know it's not the first time we've said it, is the amount of talent they have on this defensive line and just how poorly they're playing. Trev, the Dolphins' defensive line is dead last across the board in all of our grading. Everything. Every defensive lineman it's not just one or two guys blowing it up either. Every single defensive lineman on this team has a PFF grade below 65. And these are not bad football players. Chop Robinson, Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant's a rookie, but he's struggling. Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb. What happened to this defensive line? I really thought walking into the year, I know the weapons on offense and the speed, but you could have argued easily that this was their best unit on this whole team. And they've been clearly the worst defensive line in football. They got mauled last week against Buffalo. They were getting pushed back in the run game 3-4 yards consistently before James Cook had to do anything. And this Jets offensive line is pretty good, right? Membu, Fashanu, I know it's Max Chadwick's game of the week, getting Olu Fashanu versus Chop Robinson, both out of Penn State. But, honestly, if they come out and they play as poorly as this every single week, they're going to lose every single week, including to the Jets and this good offensive line. If they keep playing like that, Breece Hall could walk in there and tee off on them regardless of who the quarterback is. So I just think – I don't know what's up with this Dolphins D-line. I know we've talked about it multiple times already, but they have way too much talent to be the worst defensive line in the league. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me at all, really. They've got it. Even in this game against the Jets, and the Jets have showed a lot of fight in 2 of the 3 games, they got to play better up front on the D-line, because I really thought this would be their best unit.
Yeah, I'm going to flip over to the offensive side. I've been critical of the Dolphins' offensive line, and they have 2 of the lowest graded guards in football right now through 3 weeks. But as a whole, the offensive line hasn't been catastrophically bad. I honestly thought that I was going to look up the Dolphins' offensive line grades and see similar to the ones that you pointed out for the defensive line. But the offensive line, they're 19th overall in team blocking grade, which is not great, but it's not horrendous. They were also top 10 in a good way in pressure percentage allowed. So I was kind of shocked to see those things. Normally when they lose quickly, and that's not great because you have those sort of disaster plays. But the offensive line was not as bad as I thought it was going to be. They're actually running the ball decently well, or at least the numbers show that they're decently well. They're sort of getting into a little bit of a groove on the offensive side of the ball. I'm going to take the Dolphins here. With them being at home, I agree with what you said. They haven't looked terrible over the last couple of weeks. This is anybody's game. I don't feel super confident in it, but I will say that for as much athletic talent as the Dolphins have, I do feel like they're kind of due for a game where they really break out. And because I saw those offensive line numbers for the Jets and they weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, I will say Dolphins 23, Jets 14. What do you got?
This game is so odd. It's such an odd game because the Jets really don't know right now as we're recording this. The Jets don't know who their starting quarterback will be. Tyrod Taylor got off to a bad start last week and then stormed back in the second half. He's been running the offense at a functional level, but I think this game is more so about 2 matchups. One, it's what we just talked about with the Jets O-line against the Dolphins defensive line. If they can run the ball with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen and control the pace of this game and be the more physical team, kind of like they were against Pittsburgh in week 1, they got a shot. On the other end of it, the Jets secondary has played pretty poorly. They just made a trade for Jarvis Brownlee from Tennessee. They're going to try maybe some new bodies there at cornerback across from Sauce Gardner. If the Jets secondary can keep it together against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, and I'm a little concerned about the Quincy Williams injury at linebacker as well. He's going to be out for a while. Then it starts to tilt more in the Dolphins' favor. I'm going to get gutsy with this one. I'm going to give the Jets their first win of the year down in Miami, 22-21. This is a hard game to predict. You got 2 teams that have major flaws at certain areas of their team, but I'm going to say the Jets get a win, and I think Breece Hall will be the biggest reason for it.
There we go.
There's not many I'm going to
feel good. You feel good about it. You feel good taking the Jets.
And I want to not really, but I want to say honestly, I think there are moments from the second half of last year and even within these first 3 games for the Dolphins where effort has kind of been a problem. It has. And I think the one thing now, it was bad in week 2 against the Bills, but in week 1 and week 3, and this is why Aaron Glenn was kind of optimistic about his team coming out of last week, battling back against the Bucs, was at least
the final game of the week, our nightcap Monday Night Football game. It is the Cincinnati Bengals traveling out west to face the Denver Broncos. This, in theory, when they were making the schedule, should have been a really fun one. Should have been Joe Burrow. Should have been that Broncos defense. Should have been Bo Nix in year 2. It should have been a great game. And maybe it is still a great game, but it's not the headliner we thought that it was going to be with the injuries that these teams have and sort of how the Broncos have played a little bit to start the season. Where do you want to start? You want to start on the Bengals side of things or the Broncos?
Look, I'll go with the Bengals offense, and nothing's going to happen if their offensive line doesn't play well, and especially if they don't pass protect. The Denver Broncos have, I think their pass rush really has been, offensive line too, their pass protection, but their pass rush has, to me, been the most consistent part of their team this season. They're 7th in the NFL in pass rush grade. They're 1st in pressure rate, top 4 in pass rush win rate and sack rate. I just think what you look at with this Broncos pass rush against a Cincinnati offensive line that, again, we'll say it a million times over, but they've been struggling. But you look at Nick Bonito, Jonathan Cooper, DJ Jones, John Franklin Myers, Jonah Ellis, all the guys the Broncos can throw at you in the pass rush, and they've struggled in the secondary so far on the back end. The coverage grade is not as high as you might think, but if they can get enough pressure on Jake Browning, I think the Broncos, they're going to be fine defensively. I just think that the Bengals are at such a disadvantage every single week, run and pass game, with their offensive line and just how poor it is. It's a bottom 5 offensive line every year. It's that again this year. I think right now it's the lowest graded offensive line in the league. They haven't shown us any life yet, whether it's with Joe Burrow or with Jake Browning up front. And if they don't play significantly better against the guys this Broncos pass rush can throw at you, they got 3 different guys with at least 14 pressures already. It's just ridiculous. I think that's something that the Broncos feel really good about, is that matchup of their D-line against Cincinnati's O-line.
I'm going to keep this one really simple. I'm starting to not really care about much with the Broncos outside of Bo Nix. The defense is going to be good. I think the secondary is going to bounce back. Have they started bad this season to start the year? Yes. But I think they're certainly capable of playing a lot better. We saw that last season. We know that that's going to be the case moving forward. The defensive line, like you mentioned, is fantastic. The offensive line isn't as dominant, especially in the run game, as we've seen them be in the past. But again, I think that's something that can improve. Wide receivers, Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, they haven't really taken that definitive next step, or at least the 2025 version of whatever a lot of people thought that they were going to be. They're not quite there yet, but I think it revolves around Bo Nix, to be honest with you. And we've talked about this. His inconsistencies are holding the team back. I don't think it's solely his fault of why they're sitting here at 1-2, but I think that his misses are why they're not maybe 3-0 on the season. And until Bo Nix can figure out how to play under pressure, how to set his feet, how to throw on the run by not missing these guys, albeit by a little bit, just a little bit. He's still missing them and not converting these major pass plays. Until he can figure out how to do that, the ceiling of this team is going to be capped. And so is this an opportunity where you're at home, you're going up against a team that you should beat, a team that has struggled on the defensive side of the ball to start the season? Can you look good against this team? That's the only really question mark that I care about answering, and it's the thing that's going to matter most if we take away from this game. Can the Broncos get a win? And can Nix be one of the reasons why? Can he be a more consistent player? Because if not, Jake Browning's pretty fearless, especially when they've got no expectations on the road. What was the line in this one? 7.5?
7.5 for Denver.
7.5. Jake Browning's got nothing to lose. Perfect place for him. It's where he always loves to be. It's where he loves to thrive. So unless Nix can play more consistent, they're going to continue to play down to opponents the way that they have throughout the first 3 games of this season. They're going to keep teams into it, and who knows? You might lose some games that you think that you should have won, like, for example, that Colts game that they played a couple of weeks ago. So I am waiting for Bo Nix to play more consistently, and if he cannot, then the Broncos are going to have issues throughout the rest of the season. But that is what I'm mainly looking forward to in this one. Ultimately, I do think they get it done. I think the Broncos, I went with a little bit of a weird score in this one, 26-20. That's what I'm going with. Broncos win this game 26-20.
I have Denver as well. I have it a little wider because I just don't. The Bengals offense right now, outside of just so quickly getting the ball out to Chase and Higgins and hoping they make plays, the Bengals offense right now just has no structure to it because they can't block anybody. I have it 24-13 Denver. I think their defense and their defensive line does take this game over. And one more stat on Nix, because the accuracy to me has been concerning, and we've always known him, especially going back to his Oregon days, as an accurate passer. Right now, look, 32 quarterbacks have thrown at least 40 passes that we've charted with our quarterback charting, right? 22.7% uncatchable pass rate for Bo Nix. The only two quarterbacks higher than that, Caleb Williams and Geno Smith. That level of inaccuracy is not something we're used to seeing from Bo Nix. I've told you, I think the mechanics are off. You want to see him against the subpar Bengals defense play better in this game, just be more fundamentally sound and not take those unnecessary shots downfield. And he's missing some of them too, like you mentioned, and he's got 6 turnover-worthy plays through 6 games. You want to see Nix play better, but I do think Denver's defense really is the biggest obstacle for Cincinnati in this game. I think they control the game. 24-13 Broncos.
He's pressing, no question about it. I think he's just pressing the game, and he looks too amped up. He look like there are a couple of throws. Some of those uncatchable throws, like we've been together watching some of these. It's like he's throwing to a spot, and the receiver is not at that spot, but you don't know, okay, well, whose fault is it? Because there are a couple of times where he throws the ball to a spot, and it's incomplete, and you can see him like saying something to the receiver or the tight end, but I'll go back and I'll watch the all-22 and I'll be like, no, he stopped where he was supposed to stop. I think he was in a spot where he was the furthest away from the zone defenders. He was sitting in the true soft spot in the zone. You just kind of missed him. And I think those plays tell me that he's just pressing. He's just too amped up. He's pressing things. He's not playing calm. He's not taking a deep breath of, metaphorically or physically even, before he's doing all this stuff. And until he does that, they're going to be a very volatile team, and you're never going to know whether they're going to win or lose, despite the fact that they are one of the more talented and could be one of the more complete teams in the NFL. So we'll see what they are on Monday night. 16 games up and down there, previewed for you in week 4 of the NFL. Shout out to everybody who got into the chat that was hanging out with us as we were recording this episode. If you guys want to see all the stats that we talked about here on the show and so much more, again, a PFF Plus subscription is the best way to do it. PFF NFL Show 25, that's how you get 25% off that PFF sub. Subscribe.pff.com is the best way to do that. If you would like to get involved in this show as a sponsor, work with PFF, sales@pff.com. We would love to hear from you. Dalton, I'm excited to watch the college football slate. You guys previewed a ton of phenomenal games that we have this upcoming weekend. And, of course, it's a great NFL slate as well. So if you guys missed the college show where Max and Dalton, you previewed 12, right? 12 games
12 games, 12 big games, too. It's a loaded slate this week.
Man, if you missed that, go check out the College Football channel. Sub to that. Make sure you're taking in all that great content because Saturdays, man, makes for a full football weekend. For Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching the PFF NFL show. We'll see you guys next week.